cold as a razor blade.
So to the snake pit, but we're going to do something a little bit different this time. So look, we do have some new content from Jake. He's going to be wrapping up the story of his time in Mid-Atlantic Wrestling. However, there is a little bit of a caveat here that I want to give you guys at the beginning. Jake and I recorded the full episode, went great. However, when it was all said and done, there was a little bit of connection issue between me and Jake, and some of the stuff that we did got lost in there. So that wound up cutting down our episode by a pretty significant amount. We still got all of the really critical pieces of the story out there, but it just didn't feel like a long enough episode. So I thought to myself, why don't I do an omnibus, the collection of all of Jake's time in Mid-Atlantic from 1981 to 1982, put them all together. So right here in one fell swoop, you can get the entire story of Jake's time in the Carolinas working for the Crockett's before he made the jump down to Florida to be part of Kevin Sullivan's crew. So we've got a really long episode here today. It's a lot of fun. It'll get you back up to pace on where we were in the entire Mid-Atlantic story. And then you'll be ready when it's time for us to go into the deeper discussion when it comes to Jake's time in Florida here coming up later on this year. So I hope you guys enjoy the episode. It was really fun putting this together and getting to go back and listen to some of these stories from Jake. What a cool, incredible, really impressive time in Jake's career as he was coming up and starting to find himself as a wrestler. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. And we'll see you next week right here on The Snake Pit. This is going to mark our very first look back at your time working in the Mid-Atlantic territory, which lasted something like 1 calendar year. And this month, we're starting with your arrival in August and covering part of September of 1981. After this, we're going to go kind of month by month and look back at all of it so we can tell the full story of a time in your career that just has not been covered very much in long form. And I'm looking forward to it, man.
Well, I'm glad you are.
Well, it sounds like there's not a ton of super positive memories associated with it, but hopefully we can at least reintroduce you to some old matches or promos that maybe you'll enjoy.
Yeah, I did have some great matches with Steamboat and Barry Windham as tag team partners.
Yep.
We had some good matches, some good times there.
Getting prepared for this, that's what I've been doing, is watching some of this stuff and seeing you with like a young Barry Windham and teamed up with a young mustachioed Ricky Steamboat. I'm like, all right, this is gonna be a fun ride. Well, look, Jake, before we get into your arrival at Mid-Atlantic, let's talk a little bit about your departure from Midsouth. It's interesting that you're leaving them behind after arriving in late 1979 because you'd had some real success with Watts and had even become North American champion in spring of 81 after defeating your old pal, the Grappler. And speaking of Len Denton, he's also departing from Watts' territory and coming to Mid-Atlantic. Why leave Mid-South at this time, Jake?
Well, Bill Watts asked us to.
Why?
He was fed up with us. He had enough. I didn't understand it. I never did understand it. I was hot at the time.
Yes.
And he just said, it's time for you to move on.
That's really strange.
So he gave us to Ole.
So it was like a package deal, essentially, where he's saying, like, hey, I'll help you guys get in over there with Ole. So it was yourself,
Yeah.
Len Denton. Do you remember anybody else who came along for the ride?
Some underneath guys did.
Okay.
A guy by the name of Mike Miller.
All right.
I can't remember anybody else.
At the time, Jake, where were you making your home?
In Baton Rouge.
Okay. And so Mid-Atlantic, you're going over to, where were they based out of?
Charlotte.
Okay. So now all of a sudden you've got a big move because Bill Watts makes the choice to ship you guys off.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
It was tough.
Yeah, that would be tough. And I mean, it's safe to say that you'd be disappointed by the move, or were you kind of?
Yeah, I was very disappointed by the move because I thought we had a good thing going. I thought I was learning a lot, and I was able to wrestle with anybody, whether it be Len Denton or Ernie Ladd or anybody. It didn't matter.
As I was kind of looking back through all this stuff, yeah, I saw some big names like Len Denton, Ernie Ladd, among others that you had the opportunity to work with. Like Terry Gordy, you did some matches with him in Mid-South during this run. So it was a cool, successful run. And like I said, he put his number one title around your waist earlier this same year. And then all of a sudden he's just like, all right, that's enough.
Yeah.
Strange.
It's over.
Well, you said that you could work with anybody at this point, and it ties in perfectly with my next question because you had mentioned before during your time in Calgary that you were still pretty green. After your time in Midsouth here, did you feel like you'd started to really kind of come into your own?
Yeah, yeah. I was cooking on all eight cylinders.
Now, did you feel like you still had a lot of like looking back on it with hindsight? Do you feel like you still had a lot of developing to do, or were you there, like ready?
Sure, sure. I had more developing to do, but it was more in the character end of it, not the physical end of it in the ring.
Okay.
Because in the ring, I was ready, but character wise, I needed more polish.
We're gonna have a match later on here in the show, and yeah, watching back your stuff again. The thing that always springs to my mind whenever I watch your stuff is crisp. Everything you do is very like crisp and very like kind of precise,
Yeah,
and you can certainly see that here during this stage. So it's gonna be a fun watch. Jim Crockett Jr. took over the operation of the company following his father's death in 1973, and he would be reliant on mainstays like Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, Blackjack Mulligan, Jay Youngblood, Barry Windham, Roddy Piper, Wahoo McDaniel, and many others. Coming into the company, were you familiar with a lot of these big name wrestlers?
I'd heard about them, but I didn't know them.
Okay, you had never been around these guys.
No,
Interesting.
no,
Okay.
none of them.
Now, these are guys who originated in multiple territories, much like yourself, and they're all coming together here under Crockett's banner. Did you view these guys as some of the best in wrestling at the time?
Yeah, definitely.
So coming in the door, like anybody in particular, you're like, I really want to work with this guy.
Well, it wasn't Wahoo.
So interesting you should say that because I've heard some things about young guys working with Wahoo over the years. What can you tell us?
He beat the shit out of you, man. You go to the ring with him, and the first thing that happens is you get a great big handprint on your chest.
Oh no.
By the end of the match, blood blisters have come up, and he's busted them.
Holy shit.
So your chest would be bleeding. Nothing fun about that, bro.
So he was one of those guys who really like to get you in the corner and chop you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like so he's a veteran at this point and very very well respected of course by everybody. You're just a young guy. I'm curious like when somebody's doing that and really kind of going off on you in the corner, is it one of those things where you're like, "Okay, I'm going to get a little bit of my own back," or how do you handle
Yep.
it?
I get some back.
Okay.
I get some back.
So, like when you're doing that with a guy like Wahoo, is it like you just kind of push him off? Like, is it communicated, or you just push him off into a corner and just go to town on him?
Go to town on him, bro.
It's an interesting culture because you'd think that like a guy, well-established guy, would be fucking pissed if some young guy's pushing him around the ring trying to get him back,
No,
but they probably
no.
respected you, right?
He respected it.
So your time in Mid Atlantic is prior to Crockett having the number one territory, but Crockett was serving as the NWA president in 1981. He is known. This is Jim Jr. He's known as being a really hard nosed negotiator and businessman. What were your early interactions like with him?
They were rough, man.
Yeah.
I didn't fit in there. You know, I was one of those guys that I was on the B team.
Mm,
I was my main event on the B team. And that's the way it was the whole time I was there. One of the cities that was one of their best drawing cities was Richmond, Virginia. And I guarantee you in a year, I was only there twice.
really?
Yeah, out of a year. That meant I was in Charleston, South Carolina, which is not a fun place to be.
What was wrong with Charleston?
The lack of fans.
Ah, okay. So negotiations, obviously, it was more like set up for you by Bill Watts for you to come over there,
Right.
and you're talking about lack of fans, which I assume means that there were no guarantees at the time. It was like you make based off the
There,
house.
there was a guarantee, but I think it was $40.
$40,
Yeah,
like per match,
yeah,
and then they pay you based on the house.
yeah.
Okay, that's That sounds
You know,
shitty.
in all fairness, I wasn't ready for a big territory like this. I had never negotiated anything. I had never had to go in and talk for my job.
Hmm.
I just went to some place and went to work, and there you needed to be in that office a couple of days a week. Brown knows it.
Oh, okay.
And I wasn't good at that by choice.
So the guys who were showing up at the business on off days and just chit chatting with Jim or David or
Right.
whoever, those were the guys who were well positioned.
That's it.
Interesting. So now, as you are coming in, had you talked to Jim Jr. at all before arriving there? Or is it your first time
Nope.
meeting him when you get there?
First time meeting him when I got there.
And there was no talk of money prior to that?
Nope.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, you're kind of hamstrung where it's like you're showing up in the territory you've already moved, and it's like, I guess I have to take what you give me.
That's right. It was real
Oh Lord.
foolish on my part.
It's funny, Jake, watching back these clips. I'm like, man, this is some really good shit and some great promos and big stars. It's like, yeah, it's going to be exciting. So I was a little surprised when you said, like, yeah, I'm not super looking forward to talking about this. Now it's starting to come together a little bit. How would you compare Jim Jr. to Bill Watts or Stu Hart as a promoter? Maybe not, you don't like him as a dude, but just his promoting abilities.
I I thought he lacked a lot.
Mm,
He didn't know wrestling. He just he had a group of guys. He let them do everything. Flair and Wahoo and Ole. They told him what to do, and he did it.
okay.
You know, so somebody new coming in is going to have a hard line to pull because you don't have a spot.
So that's
And,
something that we heard about Eric Bischoff a lot during the
yeah,
WCW days was that,
yeah,
he didn't really know a ton about wrestling. So he was reliant on some of the boys like, hey, is this
right,
a good idea or is this a bad idea? And
right.
invariably, the boys are just going to position themselves well when they get asked those questions.
That's it. It's the
Okay.
same thing that happened there with Crockett.
Well, you mentioned Ole there, and
Yeah,
he was booking for Crockett at this time. Would this have
yeah,
been the first time you'd cross paths with him?
yeah. He came to Louisiana to watch me wrestle.
Really?
Yeah, and then brought me in.
Okay.
And I expected him to do things with me. He did fucking nothing for me. Just put me in tag matches on television. That was it. Didn't shoot an angle with me, didn't do anything.
So it sounds like maybe he took some interest in you because of your work, and like it must have been Ole who negotiated with Bill Watts to bring you and some other guys over.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you've mentioned before that you were not a fan of Ole and didn't have a
No,
ton of respect for him as a booker either.
no.
Uh, can you give us a little bit more insight on what exactly left you with this negative outlook on Ole?
Ole knew how to book himself,
Okay.
and that's what he did well. But he didn't know how to book everybody else. He didn't have a clue, and his idea of a match is go out there and fight and then have a run in. Fuck, man. It was so bad that people during the match, whenever it got really heated, people quit watching the match and they would turn and look to the back to see who was going to run in.
Oh, holy shit. The fans were.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
that's how bad it got, man. But no, only, yeah, he knew how to book himself, but after that, not so much.
So his booking abilities were lacking, but I also get the impression that just as a man, you were not a fan of him, his behavior or whatever.
No, it
Like,
wasn't. Ole was a bully. You know, he was a bully, and he would say things to you, and you had to be careful how you come back because he'd tell you, "Be careful what you say, kid, or you'll be in fucking Charleston the rest of your life."
what the fuck?
you know. So it's like, okay, I got to shut my fucking mouth. But my favorite guy was Blackjack Mulligan because Mulligan went into the office to talk to Ole, and he made an appointment to talk to Ole. And when he went in, Ole started to say something. Mulligan knocked him out.
Mulligan knocked him out.
Knocked him out. Waited for him to wake up and said, "Now, I said I came in here to talk. Let me talk." And so he started talking, and Ole interrupted him again. And when he did, Mulligan knocked him out again.
Holy shit.
So he knocked him out twice.
in one conversation.
One conversation. He was my hero.
We've heard over the years that Blackjack Mulligan was not a man to fuck around with.
Nope.
Man, that is awesome. I've never heard the story of him knocking him out once, let alone twice in the same conversation.
Yeah, twice the same conversation, man.
That's good shit. Now, before we continue on here with Mid-Atlantic, you talking about Ole being a bully, it makes me think, Bill Watts, obviously he's sending you away, which is unideal, but was your relationship with Watts still good at the time? Like when you're leaving?
At
like
the time it was.
Okay.
Yeah, at the time it was. I didn't like him, but big deal.
Are you guys parting when you leave for the WWF years later on a handshake, or was that when the issues between you and he really sprung up?
No, we left on a handshake there too.
Okay, so it wasn't until he kind of fucked you over in WCW that things went south.
That's it.
I gotcha. Okay. Well, look, every booker's got some rules and formulas that they follow. Was there one thing that Ole booked better than others? I know that you said that he kind of fucked a lot of stuff up, but a lot, for example, Kevin Sullivan is known for booking heat. Pat Patterson has the gaga. Dusty is great with his creativity. What did Ole do well?
Fuck things up. He was good at fucking things up.
And booking himself.
Yep.
Jake, if I can get you to look inward for a little bit as a guy who booked yourself, what do you think was your greatest strength when it came to booking?
By being able to manage everybody else.
Okay.
I took my pride in booking everybody else, not me. Because bottom line is, I didn't want to be on last. I wanted to be on like second.
You get to leave earlier.
Yeah, and have an easy night.
Man, it's unique because we do hear over the years that guys like Dusty and of course Ole, and we'll see that here with Ole, they'll, have great ideas, but a lot of their great ideas are centered around themselves and the main event, and the title and stuff.
All of it.
Well, we know that when you were working with Watts, that travel was notoriously awful. How was the travel here when you're getting to Mid-Atlantic by comparison?
It wasn't as bad. It wasn't as bad. Probably averaged 300, 200, hold on, 400 miles a night.
400.
3 or 400, between 3 and 4. Whereas with Watts, it was between 5 and 6.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's one positive to making the jump. Two announcers here at the time are Bob Caudle and David Crockett. You'd work with Bob again down the road to Smoky Mountain, but at this time, he's the true voice of Mid-Atlantic. What did you think of Bob and his announcing style? Go ahead, let him have it.
Oh man, I can't do that to old Bob, man. Some people like Bob's stuff, but I just wasn't a big fan of it. I don't know what it was, but he just didn't plug my apples, man.
Yeah, I think personally, I like him, but just because of the nostalgia factor. I think objectively, if I was just listening to the guy, I'd be like, yeah, maybe not always perfect.
Right.
And David Crockett is the other guy, and he's really well loved by wrestling fans, even to this day, because of his energy and his enthusiasm. And actually, he's still active with us here on adfreeshows.com. I love hanging out with David. He's hilarious. He's got a great sense of humor. What were your overall thoughts on David?
David was all right. My favorite Crockett was Jackie.
Really?
Yeah, because he was the dope head.
That was the camera guy, right?
Yeah,
Was it pretty much like the buck stopped with Jim Jr., or was David considered an authority figure there as well?
Jim Jr.
Yeah, I've gotten that impression over the years.
Yeah,
The month after you arrive in Mid-Atlantic, Ric Flair defeated Dusty Rhodes for his first of 16 recognized world titles, giving Crockett control of the world title. The match took place on September 17th in Kansas City, the territory run by Harley Race and Bob Geigel. All of this was agreed to in an NWA meeting earlier in the year, and it has come out in recent years that Flair, as champion, was met with a ton of pushback during this meeting. Any idea or thoughts on why putting the belt on Flair might be met with some apprehension at the time?
I have no idea, bro.
It feels strange because it's like, he was very popular. He had the look down and all that, his shtick and all that stuff that people loved. It's
Yeah,
just, yeah, hearing that, I'm like, why the hell would they push back against Flair?
I
Uh,
don't know, bro.
have you ever been part of one of these NWA meetings, or can you give any insight on these gatherings?
God, no, man. Hell no. I wouldn't be a part of that shit.
You were never interested in participating?
No, no.
It's weird, man. The politics and all the moving parts of the whole thing seem very convoluted. So, like, for reference, at this time, Dusty was working for Eddie Graham, but he was being loaned out to Vince Senior's WWF, and here he is, losing the title in Harley Race's territory to Crockett's top man. I mean, it makes
Yeah,
your fucking head spin.
yeah, it does.
I can't make heads or tails of the whole thing, and I don't mean to kick a dead horse, but I feel like your insight as a seasoned territory guy is valuable here. How important was it for a territory to control the championship and by default, the title?
Well, you got the number one draw, you know, and you just loan him out when you want to. So that means that you've got him pretty much anytime you want him.
Okay.
So he's in your backyard all the time.
And I have to imagine that there's a money-making opportunity with having the champion from your territory and loaning him out to territories, right?
Sure, they get a percentage.
Okay, now it's coming together.
Yeah, I think it was 20%.
Holy shit. Okay. That's a pretty good kickback for just sending a guy off.
Yeah,
Now, you mentioned on the last episode that never getting to hold the NWA title was something of a career regret for you, it's the same case for guys like DiBiase and Hogan, from what I've heard.
yeah,
Flair's got it here, and he's often referred to as the last traveling NWA champion, and during that insane travel schedule, which Terry Funk himself and others quickly got burnt out from. Uh,
yeah.
hy- Hypothetically, Jake, if you had been offered a run with the belt, what were your thoughts on that crazy schedule?
Oh, I would have done it in a heartbeat, man.
Really?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I don't know how long I would have lasted, but I would have damn sure give it a shot.
At the
You know?
time, it's late 81. Are you married?
Yeah.
Okay, but like travel wasn't a huge issue. Like you could be away
No, it
without.
wasn't.
Okay,
No.
man, that's a fun what if for me and a lot of other fans who I know would have liked to have seen you get a run with that belt.
In fact, my wife was in Texas.
Really?
Yeah, she stayed in Texas while I went everywhere.
Was she from Texas and just didn't want to leave with you?
Yeah, yeah.
I gotcha. Okay, well that's got to create some frustration too for you, like having to leave behind Louisiana and so close to her.
Well, she was in Louisiana with me,
Okay.
but whenever I made the move to Charlotte, she stayed behind.
I mean, is she giving you a ton of pushback on like you having to be
No,
away now full time?
no.
Wow. Well, I
Read
know.
between the lines, brother. Read
Yeah,
between the lines.
I was trying to think of a tactful way to continue that conversation, but we'll just move on. Jake.
Unfortunately, we married way too young, and
Okay,
the marriage was in rough water.
I gotcha. So a couple of young folks maybe got married a little bit too quickly, and all
Yeah,
the travel and whatnot, I'm sure was starting
yeah.
to get between you.
The glitz and glamour died real quick.
Yeah, yeah. Being married to a celebrity is probably a lot of fun until you fucking never see them.
Right.
Yeah, so I get it. So Jake, coming in the door here to Mid-Atlantic, you've got a cowboy gimmick, which is kind of a cool look with the hat. It's got a rattlesnake on it and stuff.
Yeah,
Were you doing the same gimmick in Mid-South, or was this new?
that was new.
Who came up with that whole thing?
I did.
Really?
Yeah,
Now, looking back on it, what do you think?
sucked. It looked cool, but I'm not a fucking cowboy.
I have the benefit of hindsight or foresight, knowing that what you're going to become down the road. So when I go back and see this stuff, I'm like, he looks like a young Sam Elliott. Like, it's kind of cool looking, and he's got the
Yeah,
voice and the mustache, and I don't know. Like, for me, I'm like, I don't know, it kind of works, but at the
I got
time,
I got the Sam Elliott, and I also got the Magnum TA thing. Or
yes,
Magnum, not Magnum TA.
the
Just
Magnum
Tom Selleck.
PI.
Tom Selleck.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's what I used to get all the time.
I mean, it looked pretty cool. And by the way, you did kind of have the Magnum TA thing going on too. Was he active at the time?
He was just starting.
Okay, so if he, if anybody's going to be pissed about gimmick infringement, it would be you for him
Oh
coming in.
yeah,
Because when I had him on an episode of the Snake Pit, he actually mentioned that at one point you and he, I think you guys were working in Florida together, and
yeah.
he happened to be walking past a monitor or something, and you were cutting a promo, and he was like, "Fuck, where's the camera?" Like he thought there was a camera on him. so, yeah, you guys had a very, very similar look.
Yeah.
Well, you're starting out here, as you mentioned, in tag teams right away with Bad Leroy Brown and Ricky Steamboat. So day one, you are here in a tag team. We talked about the lack of ability to negotiate earlier. Are you just coming in the door and they're just like, "Hey, great to see you. I'm glad you're here. You're in a tag team," or how does that shit go?
That was it. That was it.
I mean, it's you're
No
still
lead up, no lead up, no prep, no nothing. You and
you're
Steamboat are in tag.
you're still young, so it's like, I guess it's cool to continue to learn and watch from the apron and stuff, but I have to imagine that after like a singles run and being the North American champion, you've got to be frustrated as hell.
Oh, I was frustrated, man. I mean, it's one thing if they try, but they didn't try anything with me. Nothing. And it was so frustrating, man, that I believe I quit twice on Ole.
Did you really?
Yeah, I went home to Texas, and then they'd call me, and I'd come back. How stupid was that?
What was making you come back? Just like no other opportunities knocking?
They promised me shit.
Yeah, okay.
Then I'd go back, and they didn't fulfill it again.
Are they promising you like titles, singles runs?
They're promising me a run.
Okay.
So I wind up getting pissed off and going to Florida.
And joining forces with Satan down there.
Yep.
So Ricky Steamboat, we talked about him a little bit on our episode. He's a mainstay here in Mid-Atlantic. He's going to win United States and heavyweight titles there. Can you give us a little refresher? What did you think about Ricky during these early days around him?
His time around me, man, was always great. He was great in the locker room. He was great in the car on the highway. And he was damn sure great in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
He was a gentleman. He was a fun guy to be around.
Did you feel like he was already at that peak performance level we would see him at in the WWF at this point?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was there. He could do anything.
He's super over with the crowd, and it is kind of, if you're going to be paired with somebody in a tag team, probably not the worst guy to be paired with right out of the gate.
No, absolutely not. But they just didn't have plans for either one of us.
Well, speaking of tag teams, Gene Anderson is retired from active competition at this time, and Roddy Piper has assumed the role of the new tag team partner for Ole. They're going to come out and introduce themselves to you during a match with Jim Nelson. Let's have a look at this one.
There's a foot into the midsection. There's a knee lift, which floors Nelson. Nelson started to get up, fell flat back down on the mat. And Ole now going to pull him out of the ring. Have a little chat right here, give him a little bit of advice.
This has got me worried.
Now here
Jake,
goes Ole.
wait a minute.
And Roberts waiting on him. Meets him right on the apron. Nelson now gets him from behind.
That's what I was afraid of.
Nelson with the elbow smash right to the back of the neck. Roberts is in trouble now.
Yes, he is. You see Anderson still around the ring.
Oh, 2, and Roberts kicks out. He almost had him pinned.
Almost, but Roberts not giving up. The young man, he's fighting 3 people.
Ole Anderson, Roddy Piper outside of the ring.
Come on, Jake. Come on. Come on, Jake. Don't let him get to you. You gotta fight it. You gotta fight it, Jake.
Well, Nelson now really got the pressure to the chin with a knee in the back.
He hears those people. That's what's keeping him in there.
He's gonna bridge.
He's got it up. He's got it up. Oh, good move. Good move. Come on, get to your feet, Jake. Get to your feet.
Elbow smash again as he got his
Listen to that pin, Jake. One, he kicks out.
He kicks out that time, baby. Again on 1. Nelson, though, right back to the attack.
But Jake feels it. He feels it. He's got him behind him. He's trying to make it to the rope. No. Good move. Good move.
He got his shoulders right behind him to just butt him almost into the corner. Well, Roberts throwing some wicked rights there. Across the ring.
Into that turnbuckle. Look, he keeps on looking around, though. He just doesn't know. He just doesn't know.
And now it's Roberts into the turnbuckle. Right over.
Oh, no! Oh,
on the top of the head.
Oh, right on his head. Do you see that?
Ole Anderson can't
Oh,
believe
he's
that.
destroyed
Neither
him.
can Piper. Knee lift.
Oh, my word.
And 3, he's pinned.
Great win. Beautiful. By Jake Brown. Wait a minute. Both of them coming in.
Now here's Ole up on the apron. Here's Roddy Piper up on the apron of the ring.
Stay with it. Anything can happen. All right, wait a minute. Ole wants to get in.
Looks like Piper now is trying to hold him back. Here comes Ron Bass in. Ron Bass is just watching the situation right now. And Roberts, he almost was able to get that right hand into Ole when Ole turned around to look at him. Here's Ron Bass, and I think that's going to calm it all down, David, at this point. Ron Bass gets in to give Jake Roberts a hand. Wait a minute. Maybe all 4 are going to get in the ring. Now Ole and Piper have thought better of it. Fans, we'll be back. We'll have more action here at ringside right after this timeout.
Well, Jake, a couple of things stuck out for me there. You hit Nelson with the DDT, but then you finished him off with the knee lift.
Yeah.
Was it not originally a finishing move for you?
No. Not originally. I was just developing it at the time. I hadn't really got it down yet.
Okay.
You know, I hadn't turned it into a finishing maneuver yet. At the time, I was using the knee lift for a finish.
That is cool as hell. So, I'm going to share this on social. That's an early DDT that we're getting to see.
Yeah.
Not the first one, certainly, but an early one. And you could tell because the guys didn't know what to call it. And you could hear the shock in David's voice when he saw it. He was like, oh my God, what the hell? He dropped him on his head. It was cool as hell. The other thing that stuck out, Jake, is that you're working in really, really tight quarters there where the audience is just a couple feet away from you guys as you're working there.
Yeah.
I mean, how much does that impact your match?
Doesn't bother me.
Really?
No.
What about like calling spots in the ring and stuff?
Oh, I can get it done.
You just whisper.
I can get it done. I'll take him to the other corner.
Man, it's like having people on top of you like that, hearing every grunt and groan. I don't know. I know it would make me uncomfortable.
Every fart, everything.
What was really funny too is earlier in that video, because I watched the whole match, you could hear that Jim Nelson guy, and he's making the weirdest fucking noises as you're like clutching him, where he's like, like it sounds like
he's too much. You know who he was? Boris Zukov.
That was Boris Zukov?
Yeah.
No shit.
Jim Nelson was Boris Zukov. Yeah, he was Private Nelson for Slaughter for a while.
How about that little fact? I never put that together. That
Yeah.
is awesome. Was this your first time around Piper, or had you met him
Yeah, it's
previously?
first time around Piper.
Okay, so I mean, we're going to be talking a lot about Piper here, and actually, you have a singles match with him during this run, which
Yeah.
we are certainly going to be watching back. But for right now, I mean, he's very over the top, very attention grabbing in his promo style.
Yeah.
I watched a couple of them, and he is just like he's out there, dude.
Oh yeah, he
And
was.
and this version of you, conversely, is like you're very like subdued, you're straightforward on the mic.
Yeah.
You know, and the argument for best promo tends to be between the two of you. So it makes me wonder during this time, like Piper's promo style, what did you think?
Oh, I thought it was fabulous. Are you kidding me? He was doing the best promos out there.
Would you say, I mean, it's funny seeing some of his stuff because it does seem like stuff that you would do down the road, except yours
Yeah.
yours is a little bit more controlled, where he's just a fucking maniac.
Yeah.
And would you say that you borrowed a little bit from Piper?
Sure I did. Sure I did.
It's cool to see. For your money, is he the greatest promo ever?
Yeah.
I think it's you, but I can see why a lot of people really like him and the stuff that he did. Like I said, we're going to continue to talk about Piper and Ole as your time in Mid-Atlantic continues. But being paired with the Booker and one of the bigger stars in the territory is pretty significant. I know that, you didn't
Yeah,
quite
but it never happened.
Oh, wait a minute. So we're about to watch it
on TV.
We're about to watch another promo where you're teasing this thing. So you guys didn't wind up doing any big shows with him?
Nope.
Only on TV.
Only on TV, bro.
So I think a lot of our listeners are going to hear this and say, like, well, you're on TV with him, like that's it. Back in those days, the main event was like building toward there were no pay-per-views, so you guys were building toward going to a building and having a huge blow off in front of a giant crowd.
Right. Except it never happened.
Yikes. Okay.
So I never tagged up with Ron Bass either.
You didn't?
I don't think so.
I see. I know that down the road on our next episode, we're going to be watching some promos that you did with him and stuff. But man, I don't know. Like, do you feel like there was just something that they didn't like about you or your style when you came in?
I don't know, brother. It was something though.
Like, there's something going on here where Ole is scouting you, and then all of a sudden brings you in, tries to work with you, and then decides he doesn't want to. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, I had the people.
We heard him chant your name there during that match.
Yeah.
We'll continue to cover it as this story moves along. So the week after this match, or this interference during the match, or from Ole and Roddy, you come out with another tag team partner to address the situation. Let's have a look at our second and final clip this week.
Talking about tough customers, here's a couple of tough ones right here. Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake, Bad Leroy Brown. Good to see you.
Look what I brought with me this week, man.
Yes, sir.
I've had a lot of partners in my time, but this is one of the biggest, and Bad knows how to get down. So let me tell you something out there. Ole Anderson, you've been poking your nose in on me. You've been looking around my matches. I don't know why, but I just want to warn you. If this man's around, you're going to get bit. And if he don't do it, the snake will. Talk to him, Bad.
Leroy, hey, we've had guys like Sergeant Slaughter come in, also Abdullah the Butcher. It's really getting rough.
Hey, you know it's getting rough around here in the Mid-Atlantic area. And only the strong shall survive. You know, back in Chicago, the one thing I learned early in life, and that's how to survive. And me and my man Jake could take on all takers. And Ole Anderson, I don't like him no way, like I told him before. And anytime I get my hands on him, anywhere, whoa, he gonna pay some heavy duty.
All right. Jake the Snake Roberts, Bad Leroy Brown.
That's something else. They are two rough ones, and like they said, watch out Ole Anderson.
Ready to take on all comers.
Watch out, Ole Anderson. We'll see you on TV.
Yeah, I don't remember us ever having a match.
You and Bad.
Nope.
Well, actually, next time we discuss it, there is a tag team match with the two of you on there.
Really?
We'll watch back. Yep.
Wow.
So Jake, Leroy Brown, I have never seen anything of his before I started doing this. Not a match, not a promo, nothing.
Oh, really?
And not a single thing. But brother, that guy just jumps right off the damn screen, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
I mean, was he as much fun to be around as he seemed?
No,
No.
no.
What was he like?
He fell asleep.
What?
He fell asleep in the ring one time.
No shit.
Yeah, standing in the corner. Fell asleep.
I mean, watching that back, I'm like, holy shit, the party scene down there must have been a fucking blast with Leroy
Yeah.
around.
In Mid-South, he was tagged up with Ernie Ladd.
Really?
Yeah. He was one of the guys that came over.
Now, is that where he fell asleep? Is when he was teaming up with Ernie?
No, yeah.
Holy shit, man. Amazing. Wow. Okay. So yeah, I was like, hey, Jake is there, Barry's there. Now this crazy bastard's around. Like, boy, the party scene in Mid-Atlantic, you guys must have been having a ball, but not so much.
That Leroy didn't party.
You don't really remember working with the guy. I was going to ask you what you thought of him as a partner, but how about what did you think of him and his work when you see it?
It was all right.
Yeah.
It was okay.
Not too bad for a big man.
Not too bad for a big man.
We are taking our second look back at Mid-Atlantic Wrestling in late 1981 after you just arrived in the territory. This month it's September into October. And, ordinarily as I'm going through this stuff, I'm like, it's kind of the same month to month. He's working with the same guys. They have long programs here. Nope, not in this case. You are all over the place. You're bumping up against some real legends, and I cannot wait to talk to you about it this month, brother.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so at this time, Austin Idol is in the territory, and he's a guy we will likely not have many opportunities to talk about here on the show. An impressive look, a good promo, and a guy who clearly had some staying power because he's still active in pro wrestling today with NWA. Here in October, you'd work a singles match with him. Did you get much time around him, and what did you think of his work?
Oh, his work was, let me see how I can say this. It was paper bag worthy.
Oh, wow.
He's a showman.
Yep.
That's it. He's not going to give you a bunch of wrestling. And whatever he does is done with kid gloves.
Okay, so you'd be out there with him waiting for something, and he's coming at you a little late.
Yeah, he wouldn't break no eggs.
So, you were not the first person to talk about him in those terms. I think it was Jerry Lawler or somebody like that described him as being a marginal worker who really got by on looks and his promo skills. I mean, obviously the full package is ideal in wrestling, but I'm curious about your opinion, Jake. Is it more important to be a great worker or to have a strong character like Austin had?
I think it's more important to be a great worker for longevity.
Ah, okay.
You might have a look. How long is that look going to last? 5, 10 years?
That's a good point.
And the upkeep on that's a lot harder than learning how to work.
I heard Scott, I think it was Scott Hall once said it was like Kevin Nash came out and he was like flexing as they were getting ready to go to the ring or something. When they got backstage, Hall was like, hey man, don't flex. He was like, because your body's going to be the first thing that goes.
Yeah.
Which is just smart. Like it's, kind of protecting yourself and your longevity if you're not making it yourself a body guy in wrestling.
Absolutely.
Now, here in Mid-Atlantic, did you feel like a limited work rate like Austin had would create a ceiling for him? Or, do you think he was going to go on to have success regardless of not being a technician?
He wasn't going to be there long.
Ah.
I dreaded working with him. Good. And personally, he's a great guy. I had no bitch with him, no beef, nothing. But working with him is a lesson where you have to work around him.
Gotcha.
That's the key. If you cannot work around him, you're done.
Now, I've heard guys like Ted DiBiase describe working around a guy like Junkyard Dog, which is essentially, Ted described it as you put him in the center of the ring and you just take bumps around him. It was the
Yep.
same deal with Austin Idol?
Yep.
Gotcha. So probably not a super easy night off for you.
Nope.
Now, Jake, while we're on the subject, did you ever get the full story on Austin Idol's plane crash with Gary Hart and Bobby Shane?
You know, I've heard that story from Gary Hart. And it was a horrible story, man. Wow. You surprised me with that one.
Yeah, Bobby Shane would actually be killed in that crash. Did you get to know Bobby Shane at all?
No, I never met Bobby.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's, as I was doing research on this, they were saying like the guy seemed like he had this super bright future. So pretty crazy thing to have happen.
Yeah, he had a great future in front of him, man. And he got pinned in the plane, man. And his greatest fear was drowning. And that's how he went. He drowned.
Dude, that is terrifying. I didn't know that detail.
Yeah. Gary Hart actually went back to the plane twice and pulled people out.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So that's kudos to him. I believe he got Idol out of there. And he got somebody else out of there too. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, I know that Idol did not want to fly for a long time after that. And I mean, hard to blame him.
Yeah. Can you blame him?
I know that you and Cheryl would fly with Ronnie Garvin, but aside from that, were you ever getting on those small, kind of more dangerous planes?
Yeah, I've done it several times.
Nerve-wracking for you?
Not so much.
I mean, the odds are against you ever getting into a plane crash, even on one of those smaller planes. But man, that is, after Ric Flair getting in one, and then, of course, this awful story about Bobby Shane, it's like, I'd probably think twice a little.
You might think about it. You just got to be comfortable with who's flying the damn thing. Trust in them. And I trust Ronnie Garvin totally.
I mean, after the way that he had protected you in the ring, so to speak, yeah, I guess you could probably trust him. Although, I don't know, sometimes you guys really beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah, we did.
Well, on the final episode of September 81, you are all over the place creatively. You're continuing the issue with Ole Anderson and Piper, but you're also a run-in at the end of a match won by the Grappler and the Super Destroyer to try and scuffle with them for cheating to win. We know that you're still tight with the Grappler, Len Denton, to this day. But let's talk about the Super Destroyer a little bit. What can you tell us about Scott Irwin?
Big son of a bitch, man. He was big, good worker, smooth. Hated his finish. God, I hated his goddamn finish.
What was it?
Superplex.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, Bill Watts had him give me that damn thing for about 2 weeks straight down in Louisiana.
Oh, no.
Yeah, every night. Every night. Not one, two.
Is that a rib from Watts?
There it is.
Jesus, man.
Take two of them a night.
I think most people know what a superplex is, but in case you don't, you're listening to this, that's where Jake would be sitting on top of the top rope, and this guy would hook him for a vertical suplex from the top rope all the way down into the ring.
He would stand on the top rope.
Oh.
Yeah. And he was 6'5", 6'6". It was a long damn ways down, man.
So, I mean, just doing some simple math here, you're 6'5" yourself. So, I mean, you're crashing down whatever it is. I mean, your feet are 13 feet in the air at the top.
Yeah.
Actually, more than that, because he's on top of the top rope. So,
right.
So that is a hell of a fall.
I'll be looking at 18 feet, 20 feet.
And you're doing two of those.
Just for a rib.
Oh, God. Brutal, man.
Yeah, just for a rib from that no good fucking piece of shit Bill Watts cocksucker.
We all know how much you love Bill. Stop teasing.
Yeah.
Those rings back then were not exactly forgiving either, were they?
They were not forgiving rings.
Now, I've heard about the rings in the South being like a little bit easier to bump on than what people were experiencing up in Connecticut. Would you agree with that or no?
No.
No, it's still brutal no matter where you are.
They still hurt you.
I'll bet.
You know, the rings up north were a little stout. That's why guys didn't do much in them.
No, I mean you would see somebody take like I have a real memory of like Mick Foley getting suplexed off of a cage or something into the ring, and that ring just you don't see it bounce or anything. It's like he might as well just hit cement.
The cement's probably softer.
Just, no, thank you. Scott's brother Bill Irwin is going to go on to be the Goon in the WWF while you're back with the company from 96 to 97. Jake, as a guy who once pitched a mole gimmick for Jim Neidhart, what was your opinion on the Goon?
I think the Goon was a great gimmick.
Did you really?
Sure. If they pushed it, you know. The guy's a ruffian, man. He's a hockey player. His whole thing is to go in there and just punch and swing. It's great.
That is not the answer I was expecting from you at all. Wow.
See, there you go.
How about that? You still we're over a year into this and you're still surprising me here and there.
There you
go. I mean, was the timing maybe not right for the Goon gimmick? I mean, it was like the NWO was in full swing. Austin was emerging.
It's the bottom line. The bottom line is if you're going to push the guy or not. And they weren't going to ever push him. Ever. Mm-hmm. All he was brought in to be a colorful jobber. That's it. Him, Hopper.
Oh, yeah, TL.
All those guys were brought in to be job guys. They just wanted to dress him up and try to make some type of character out of him. Get more mileage out of him that way.
That is puzzling because, I mean, every time you go to a new city, there's some local promoter that you can call and get job guys from. So, like, why have them on the payroll? It's just weird.
Well, because you can trust them to do a better job than these local guys.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense. All right, we can go back to 1981. I just figured we ought to talk about Bill while we were there. So was it your preference to work with guys in the ring that you have familiarity with, or were you looking to get reps with new opponents? I ask because, I mean, it kind of feels like you're leaning toward working with the grappler again here, like you had in Mid-South.
I would love to have done that. My God, we went out there and lit the house on fire. But they didn't want it.
Were you happy to get reps with new opponents, or were you like, damn, I wish I would have gotten Len instead?
You know, whatever's put out there, I'm going to work with, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I just want it to be a good product. You know, have a great match, do a finish that means something, you know, a match that means something, and keep moving forward. That's the bottom line.
So at this age, you're just young and hungry, and you're just trying to achieve wherever. Like, hey, give me whatever creative. I'll just do it as well as I can.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, by the end of this episode, we're kind of back on track creatively. The grappler is going to interfere in a match between Jay Youngblood and Ole to give Youngblood the DQ win. Yourself and Outlaw Ron Bass come out to break things up before all of you go into a promo to close the show. So, Jake, it's late September here, and now, since arriving in Mid-Atlantic in August, you've been associated with Steamboat, Leroy Brown, Ron Bass, and now Jay Youngblood. So it kind of feels like they're still trying to figure out how exactly you fit into the picture here, huh?
Yeah, and I argued I didn't want to be in a tag match. I told him I was better off in the singles.
Right out of the gate, you were saying, hey, come on, just put me in singles.
Man, I can shine in a single, but a tag match, man, I don't like them.
Yeah, I mean, especially coming off your run in Mid-South, where, again, you were with Len Denton, and you were starting to kind of feel yourself as a wrestler, and now all of a sudden it's like, it has to feel like a step backwards for them to put you in a tag team as opposed to trusting you in singles competition.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. You know, in a singles match, you go out there and you paint the whole picture any way you want to. But in a tag match, you go out there and start painting the picture, and the guy comes behind you and marks it off and starts a different picture.
Oh,
You know, and just totally frustrating. Totally frustrating.
now Jay Youngblood, however, is another dude you're going to go on to tag with while you're there in Mid-Atlantic. And Jake, I recently saw this really funny promo with Youngblood where he's doing a promo with Bob Caudle, and right in the middle of it, he says "fuck" by accident. He's like, "This fucking guy out here," or whatever, and it was great. I mean, what can you tell us about Jay Youngblood?
He's a good kid, man. You know, he just Jay was there to have a party.
Mm.
A good time. You know, that's what he was all about, man. Yeah. Sad that he's gone, but here he is.
Yeah, watching the promos with him, he just reminds me of like those guys in high school that were stoners. Like he's just got that type personality to him, which is it's cool and it kind of works. Like he seems like an interesting character. It has been reported though that he could be a little bit more challenging to work with, especially when it came to deciding wins and losses in the ring. Did you ever see any of that from him?
No, I didn't.
Okay, pretty agreeable when you were around him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's also worth noting here that one of the guys you were working with on a few live events during this time was Jacques Goulet, who most fans are going to remember better as Rene Goulet. He's going to retire as an active wrestler in 1986, but he's going to work as a road agent for the WWF from 86 to 97. So I'm guessing you spent probably more time around him during that period. What can you tell us about Rene?
Unfortunately, I spent time around him.
Okay, not all good memories with Rene.
Tough.
Why is that?
Well, he wasn't going to bump.
Mm.
You know, no arm drag here. You know, you got very little out of it. You know, he'd done his time, and he just wanted to protect himself completely.
So at this period, he was just kind of an older dude. So you're treating him similarly as you would a guy like JYD, as we discussed, where you're just going to be the primary bump taker.
You're limited. Get over it.
What about as a road agent? I mean, he was there for a long time, so obviously he was doing something right.
Agent did a good job.
What exactly are the duties for a road agent in the WWF during like the late 80s? Like, are they just helping book matches, or how does that go?
They set up the matches. They make sure that the guys are somewhat straight enough to have a good match.
So they're like seeing how dilated people's pupils are before they go out there.
Right. Can this guy really walk? Occasionally they'll have a drug test. And their job then is to watch the peckers.
No way. That's their job.
Yeah, they have to watch them because guys were bringing things in and cheating on the drug tests.
That's a weird spot for a guy like Rene to be in, as one of the boys, or formerly one of the boys. Now he's got to come up to you and say like, "Hey, dude, come to the bathroom with me."
Well, he got to do that, and then another guy that got to do it was AWA champion. What was his name?
Nick Bockwinkel.
Bockwinkel.
No shit.
Yeah. In fact, the boys made a song up for him. You know, he's the pecker watcher. He's the pecker watcher. Not go by. Oh my. Yeah. AWA champions, the pecker watcher.
Man, I expect us to go a lot of directions on this one, but never to Nick Bockwinkel staring at penises.
Yeah.
Oh man, what a weird position for him to be in. So you're telling me that both Nick Bockwinkel and Rene got to see the snake?
Oh yeah.
How about that? There you go. There you go, boys and girls. A little. You never know what you're gonna learn here on the show. Do you ever recall Rene helping you with creative, or was he just more like one of those guys like, yeah, what do you have in mind? Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. So you weren't learning much from him. He was just like,
oh God.
okay. Okay. Well, as we come into October, you continue to get shuffled around with partners. You're facing the Grappler and the Super Destroyer on live shows on October 1st and 12th. But in the first match, you'll be paired with Steve Muslin, and on the second, you've got Paul Jones. Now, do you think this was just about who is in the towns and available to work with on any given day, or why do you think all this weird hokey pokey?
They didn't have a fucking clue, man. They didn't have a clue.
Like, it's just really bizarre, and it does seriously feel like they're just kind of booking on the fly. Like, you show up and they're like, okay, well, Jake's here. We know he's, feuding with these two. Fuck it. Steve's over there. Get in there, Steve.
Yeah. That's exactly what they did.
Well, Paul Jones is a Texas boy like yourself, and later he'd go on to manage you briefly with Dory Funk Jr. in 1983. I'll admit that I don't know much about the guy, but I know he's highly regarded. Can you talk to us a little bit about Paul?
Paul was a mainstay in the Carolinas for years. He put 20 years in there. So he knew something. But he was a solid worker.
Yeah, no, he had a long career, and I think a lot of fans are going to remember Paul as a manager during the latter years of JCP,
Yeah.
the Paul Jones Army. Good to work with as a tag team partner.
Anyway, yeah, as long as you want to do all the work.
I gotcha. Okay,
So
so that's probably going to negate my next question, which was, he's been working since the 60s, so obviously this is a veteran. At this time, you're whatever, 26 or 27. Are you learning stuff from these guys? Are they offering you information?
No.
Nobody was trying to help you out?
No.
Like, I know that you were always great about helping young talents. So what's the mentality here?
They were lazy, man. They were at the end of the road, and they knew it, and they just wanted to hold on. And unfortunately, I'm trying to get going, so I had to kick it into high gear just to get something out of the match.
Oh.
It's very frustrating.
So they see a young guy like you, great worker, great look, great promo, and they're just like, well, this guy's coming from my fucking spot.
They knew that I was going to keep moving.
And
probably up. And they didn't like that. They didn't like that. They would have held me down any way they could.
Crazy to think about that mindset, but I guess to paint the picture for our listeners, like this is still like the days of some of these guys were working on fairgrounds, like this, very carny period of time in pro wrestling. So I sort of get it where these guys are just trying to think of their own paychecks, but man, it's after a while, you got to give up the damn ghosts and help some younger talent.
It gets old, man. It really gets old.
Well, you're not done working with these veteran guys yet. You're going to call out Ole Anderson on TV for not defending his tag team titles in 2 months. And the next week, yourself and Paul are going to end up getting a tag team title shot against Ole and a masked partner who's calling himself the Super Destroyer. Let's drop in on the final minutes of this one. Okay, the alleged Super Destroyer has got you hooked. By the way, for our listeners, this stuff is really easy to access. You can find it on WWE Network. A lot of it is just found online as well. This is from October 1981, Mid-Atlantic Wrestling. Okay, Jake is making his way back to his feet. Tommy Young checking in on you there. Super Destroyer gives you a knee to the gut. Shoots you off. Reversed it. And... oh, Jake with the big knee to the face. Oh, but he tags out right away, and here comes Ole to cut off that hot tag. Okay, Ole with the big slam on you. Misses the elbow. There's the hot tag. Paul Jones is coming in like a house of fire. Whooping Ole's ass. Beating on the Super Destroyer now. Big backdrop. Paul is going after it. There we go, Jake. You're in there to help him out as Ole and Super Destroyer try to team up. There's a big knee to Super Destroyer. Ole goes down. Tommy Young's trying to get your ass out of there. You guys are ping-ponging. Ole back and forth. This is good stuff. All right. Order's restored. You're back on the outside. Super Destroyer makes his way back in. Takes a big slam. Oh, no, wait a minute. He's reaching down into his trunks. He's got the gimmick. He's loading his mask. Big headbutt to Paul Jones. Tommy Young counts to 1, 2, 3. That's it. You're in shock. Super Destroyer and Ole are on their way out. Okay, so poor Paul Jones get the screw job finish there. But Jake, that was not the Super Destroyer there at the end of the match. I'm asking you to reach back now. It's 43 years. Do you remember who the guy under the mask was for this?
No clue.
That was Gene Anderson, Jake.
Was-
Which it was. And apparently after this, they would beat up Paul and whip him, and you would unmask him, revealing to everybody that it was Gene Anderson. So, I mean, pretty cool. And I know you're not a big fan of Ole, but what did you think about stepping into the ring during this stage of your career? Again, your late 20s, and you're with a legendary tag team.
It was all right, man. You know, it was a new way of working.
Mm.
They weren't going to be high flyers. And they did a lot of hardcore wrestling, you know, really get in there and grind it out. Just a little backstory. Gene Anderson and I became roommates.
Really?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah. Just crazy shit happened, man. We became roommates. That opened the door for some wild times.
So during this period of time, you were rooming with him?
Yeah. And his wife had just divorced him.
All right.
So he wasn't in a good mood.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So you're the young guy living with a veteran during this period.
Yeah.
And he's not in a great mood all the time because he had just lost his wife.
Right.
All right. So, I mean...
Bringing people through the house, you know, I mean...
Wait a minute. You're bringing people through the house?
Yeah. Just have a little fun.
Okay. So you're still young and you're still trying to have a good time here in this new territory, and this dude is way older than you, probably just trying to relax.
Yeah. He didn't appreciate my antics, let's just say that.
Oh man, good stuff. And it would have been your first time meeting Gene during this period, correct?
Yeah.
Oh Lord, so this is a man you've never really been around before. He's significantly older than you, a veteran in wrestling, and you're just trying to be a young guy.
Yep.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I think it's worth noting that Gene helped develop that traditional Anderson style of wrestling where they work on one body part and wear it down. Like, for example, they might spend the entire match working on an arm and then win the match with an armbar. So it's pretty basic, easy to follow for the audience. But, even the basic presentation with the Andersons, they became a household name and one of the most feared teams in Mid-Atlantic. What do you think of presenting wrestling in that way?
Great.
Yeah.
Great. They were hardcore, man. They were hardcore before there was hardcore.
Yeah, I mean, the style, again, these guys are coming from the previous generation. So, I mean, there is a difference in style for sure, where it kind of resembled a little bit more of a, like an amateur style, slower pace, stuff like that. So how was it adjusting to that type of ring work?
It was easy. They just beat the hell out of you.
You were the primary bump taker in that one again, and you wound up giving Paul Jones the hot tag. So, I mean, is that the position you wanted to be in, or would you have preferred to be the hot tag guy?
Well, you give him the hot tag and he gets beat.
Okay.
I guess it's not that bad of a position.
And not that bad for him because he gets to come in and just lay down real quick, or not bad for you?
Not that bad for me. I didn't get beat.
Ah, okay. Which is, again, it's a crucial element here in this match where you are wrestling these two veterans and you don't get your shoulders pinned. So it is a big deal. Well, we were just talking about styles, and speaking of styles, I can't let one of these go by without asking you a little bit about Ole. Arn Anderson has said on his podcast, Arn, that when you worked with Ole, he gave you absolutely nothing, and you had to work for everything you got. What exactly does that mean for somebody who isn't quite as familiar with the inner workings of wrestling?
It means that he's not going to put it out there on a silver platter. You got to go out there and get it. If you want the arm, you got to take that damn arm. And you better hold on to it, because if he gets away, he gets away. He don't play around. He makes you work for it. He'll give it to you, but you're going to have to fight him for it. It's awesome, I think.
Okay.
Makes sense to me.
So it creates a sense of realism where it's like, if you snatch somebody by the arm, of course they're going to try to pull away, and that's what he's going to do. So if you want to get your arm bar in, you need to hold on for dear life.
You got to fight him for it, which makes it real.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And, look, Ole's he's developed a bad reputation for kind of eating up younger guys. But I mean, like, I'm sure that that's probably just the way that he learned to do wrestling, right?
Yep.
So Jake, the next week you're out on TV talking to David Crockett and Bob Caudle about the screw job at the hands of the Andersons, and you've got an absolutely legendary partner there ready to back you up. Do you remember who that was by any chance?
I don't know.
You're there paired with Wahoo McDaniel. I mean, you want to talk about a damn legend. You've been jumping around from partner to partner here. Being paired with Wahoo, did it have you feeling a little bit more optimistic about being in a tag team?
Damn right. Maybe feel like I'm somewhere.
Yeah, man. You can't really overstate how popular Wahoo was and what a legend he was in this territory. So, I mean, it's a huge, huge thing for you to be paired with him this early in your run. Now, I've heard some guys say that they like to be paired with established veterans, but others say that they don't like it because that means that they have to adjust their style. It's safe to assume that you were good with, being paired here?
It was all right. I'd still rather be in a singles match, though.
Okay.
Wahoo's great guy, great partner, but it makes you fight that much harder to try to get over because everybody's watching him.
Okay, guys, we're hitting the pause button, and I've got to talk to you about a product that you all know that I absolutely love. I cannot put them over strongly enough. I talk about them here on the show all the time, and there's a good reason for it. It's because they are absolutely phenomenal. I'm talking about Mando whole body deodorant. I would see the commercials for them, and then they started sponsoring the podcast, and I could not have been more excited to try this product out after everything I had heard, and they did not disappoint. And I promise you that they will not disappoint you either. You guys have seriously got to try them out. They're my favorite sponsor whenever it comes to controlling body odor and making you just smell amazing. These guys have got it on lock when it comes to not just creating these incredible scents, but scents that are going to last and stay with you the whole day, and not just for your armpits, for your whole body. That's right, your whole body. It's dermatologist tested and gentle on all of your bits and pieces. It controls odor for 72 hours, and that has been clinically proven. You can choose from 4 cologne quality scents or go with unscented if you want to be a little stealthy about it. Okay, you guys have heard me talk about this before. This is my favorite. I've been hoarding them. I've got a few of them stored up, and I'm going to continually order this product. It doesn't matter if Mando is sponsoring the podcast or not. I am always going to buy this because of this scent. It's Mando's acidified body wash, and that is in the bourbon leather scent. Holy smokes, does this smell good. Guys, if you haven't tried it yet, seriously, you've got to go out of your way to check this one out. This is one of my favorites. Another one that I really like is this Pro Sport Invisible Cream Deodorant. So this one's got a little bit more of a subtle odor to it. But man, when they say that it helps you control full body odor, that's a shoot, brother. You can put this stuff anywhere. Feet, packaged, pits, wherever you want, and it is going to get the job done. Whether it's in the shower, the bathroom, at the gym, or in the car before you've got a big meeting or something, this stuff is so convenient and so effective. At one point, I was working a match at wrestling training, and my buddy Craig, who's one of the trainers, he's a tremendous trainer, and he's a referee, was reffing the match, and he was like, somebody in this ring smells really good. I, in the middle of the match, took credit for it because that was me, and that was Mando. Again, you can put this anywhere, pits, packages, feet, and beyond. There's no aluminum, no benzene or parabens. It's dye-free, and it's 72-hour odor control, so it's going to last you a long while. It's doctor-developed, doesn't cause irritation, and above all else, the most important feature that it has is that it smells incredible. Does anything make you feel more confident than smelling good? Absolutely not. If you're like me, you're out there strutting around hoping somebody's going to come along and smell you when you've got a great product like Mando. Seriously, guys, I cannot recommend this product strongly enough. It's time to make the upgrade to Mando. We've got a special offer for new customers. You can get $5 off Mando's best-selling starter pack with our code SNAKE, S-N-A-K-E, at shopmando.com. That starter pack has got everything you need if you're a new customer. We're talking about the solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, and again, you guys have got to try that acidified body wash because that is the one as far as I'm concerned. Plus, you get free shipping on this thing. Seriously, don't wait any longer. Use my discount code if you're a new customer and save $5 on the starter pack. It equates to over 40% of the starter pack. I mean, come on, guys, that is an incredible deal, and you don't stand to lose anything by giving it a try. You only stand to smell better. Again, it's code SNAKE at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. The promo code is SNAKE, and now's the time to get started on smelling the way that you've always wanted to smell, and maybe more importantly, the way that your partner's always wanted you to smell, thanks to Mando. And I don't imagine the Wahoo, you're clearly going to be the guy starting the match and taking all the bumps and then giving Wahoo the hot tag. And I don't picture Wahoo being the one to get his shoulders pinned to the mat when you guys lose to the Andersons. So, so you're coming in there doing all the work, and then at the end, you're going to get pinned in all likelihood.
Probably.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned in our last Mid-Atlantic episode, the Wahoo could be tough to work against because he'd hit you anywhere between your stomach and your face with those chops. How about teaming up with him a little bit better?
Yeah, much better. You get to watch him brutalize people.
Is it you calling the matches, or Wahoo, or the Andersons, or how would that go?
Just a street fight.
Okay, so it's you guys are just going out there throwing down.
Yeah.
Well, probably some pretty fun, believable stuff. There is no way that anybody but you is selling in a match where it's the Andersons and Wahoo McDaniel and you. I mean, it's 3 legends and you're the new guy. What type of pressure would that put on you to perform?
Made me fight for my life. And it was good for me. It was good for me.
So you felt like that was a good learning circumstance for you?
Sure it was. I had to fight from underneath and come out and still not. I had to constantly escape things that they're doing to me. And when you do that, it makes you stronger. You understand?
Yes.
So they had me in the corner. I'd escape out of the corner, but I wouldn't make the tag. You know, I'd let them get me back. Then I'd escape again. Somehow, some way. Maybe they'd slam me. They'd go to drop an elbow. I'd roll. See, I've escaped again. I got to my feet, but damn it, I can't make that tag because he got me blocked. So that was the lesson.
So you're doing like all the bumps and in all likelihood taking the pinfall, but you're still coming out of this looking very strong.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, it is a really good spot to be in then.
Yeah.
We've talked before about how moving from territory to territory it afforded you the luxury of learning from a bunch of different performers with different styles and mindsets. So would you say that you learned anything while teaming up with Wahoo?
I probably did, but I can't remember what it was.
Well, let me try another similar question. Did you learn anything that you were like, hey, I am not going to do that in matches from working with Wahoo?
No, I'm not going there.
All right. I won't push the issue on that.
Yeah.
When it came to your wrestling philosophies at this time, though, I mean, you'd done some bouncing around from Calgary and Mid-South, of course. Who would you credit with giving you the most knowledge? Your dad?
Buck Robley.
Buck Robley.
Yeah.
Okay, he was the booker in Midsouth while you were there. What kind of stuff did Buck teach you?
Psychology.
So just the simple basics of the ring, essentially.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Like you call it, he told me the truth of the ring.
The truth of the ring. Being that, just your position as a babyface, essentially?
Right. How to get over.
And if you understand the babyface's objectives and roles, then I would assume that understanding the heel's role is pretty easy after that.
Do you?
Now, Jake, that promo wasn't bad by any means, but you aren't quite dialed in all the way like you would be a year or two after this. Would you say that you were feeling uncomfortable on the mic at this time?
I wasn't uncomfortable, but I still hadn't found my character. And that was the issue. I still hadn't found out who I was. I wasn't no fucking cowboy. Jesus.
Was there anybody along the way that you would credit with helping you dial in your promo style?
No.
It's just reps for you.
Yeah, it was me. Finding me.
Now, I know that you did not like Ole, of course, but you both did have that same kind of delivery where you weren't going to scream and shout. It was all business all the time, a simple, clear-cut delivery, what was going to happen whenever you stepped into the ring. And so I know it's tough to be objective when you don't like a dude, but what did you think of Ole's mic work overall?
Pretty damn good.
Yeah.
It was solid. Very solid. But he had a lot of years to learn that.
Yes.
And I was just getting started.
I have to agree. I was unfamiliar with Ole's work mostly up until about like 2 or 3 years ago. And after I started watching him and I was like, he reminds me a little bit of Jake. He's just like very piercing stare, very straightforward. So you got to give him that. He might not be a great dude, but holy shit, he could cut a promo.
Yeah. Yeah, he can do that.
All right, before we go, I just want to leave our listeners with a little teaser for the next one. On the next episode, we're going to talk about you teaming up with a performer who is named Sweet Ebony Diamond. Jake, can you tell our listeners who Sweet Ebony Diamond was?
I'd rather not. Let them guess.
Okay, I like that idea. All right, that'll be a little teaser for next time. Yeah. Let's hit a quick fan question. We're done. Jake, it's from Peter D. Hi, Jake. I hear stories about Roddy Piper being a great guy, salt of the earth, but others say he was an insufferable prick. Were his moods depending on his partying habits? Did you have any issues with him?
I've had issues with him, but overall, I got along with him. Maybe it's because I didn't press it too much.
Okay.
But no, I got along with Roddy.
One day I'm going to get you to tell the story about doing like a 3-day road trip with Roddy.
Oh, God.
One day we'll get there. When we last left off on the subject of Mid-Atlantic, we ended on a teaser because you were about to work with a performer named Sweet Ebony Diamond. Jake, now's the time. Who is Sweet Ebony Diamond?
Wow. Sweet Ebony Diamond.
Does it ring a bell?
Yeah, it does. I'm trying to think of was that he has a bad eye?
No, sir.
No?
No, that was Sweet Ebony Diamond was Rocky Johnson.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. I'm coming back to you?
Yeah.
It's cool because, you'd reference getting to know him and, get to travel with him and his son, The Rock, of course, back in these days. So now we're, this has got to be the time period. So, I mean, looking back on it, Jake, what did you think of Rocky's ring work overall?
It lacked.
Okay. What was he missing?
He was a cartoon guy.
Okay.
So he didn't want to get in there and grind it out. He just wanted to get in there and play.
Gotcha. So he wasn't the kind who's going to go out there and kind of build a nice, well-rounded story. No. He's out there just being flashy.
Yeah, he's out there being flashy and being corny and being funny.
That is not your thing.
No, definitely not.
So, I mean, you guys are going to go on to work against the Grappler and Super Destroyer. Obviously, Len Denton quite well. And it'll be on a few occasions here as you come into November. As you said, you guys are very different performers. Would you say that, like, sometimes opposites attract? Would you say you guys develop some decent chemistry?
We made the best of it. I
Okay.
went and did the hard work, and I'd tag him, and he'd get there and fuck it all up.
So he'd get the hot tag, and just like
Yeah.
the match goes off the rails.
Just fuck it up, man. Turn it into a goddamn cartoon.
So like, what's his cartoon shit? Like the dancing around, silly punches?
Yeah.
Or...
Dancing around and the whoop-de-doo punches, and
It is funny because watching your work at this time, like you're in there telling a story and it's serious and it feels gritty, like it feels like a fight. So then picturing this guy coming in, you got to just be on the apron like, oh my God.
I just sit in the corner like, fuck.
All that fucking work you just put in.
Yeah.
Jake, I've heard mixed things about Rocky over the years, including from his son, Dwayne. So I'll ask you, what did you think of him as a guy?
It was all very superficial. He was one of the boys, but yeah, he was very superficial. You never got to know him.
Okay. So it was all just kind of surface, kind of carny-ish type behavior.
Absolutely.
Well, look, we're not going to dwell on him too long, but he is a guy that we aren't likely to talk about very much here on the show. He and Tony Atlas teamed together a few years later, winning the WWF Tag Team Championships, and they would also become the first African-American Tag Team Champion to do so.
Yeah.
How big of a deal was it for Atlas and Johnson to become the first African-American Tag Team Champions during that era?
Oh, it was huge, man. It was, it's off the charts huge. They did it, what was it, the early 80s or the late 70s? Yeah, early 80s.
Yes, sir.
And that color barrier hadn't came down yet.
Mm-hmm.
You can say what you want. I know I witnessed it all the time. Black guys didn't get the breaks, in the early 80s. JYD was one of the first that really got a big break. And he carried it nationwide. Other than that, it didn't happen.
It is interesting because, yes, Bill Watts, he's got this reputation for being a racist, and that's part of why he was fired.
But when his money was coming in, he didn't mind counting it.
Okay, so he saw that he could make money.
That's the only reason, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny because, after JYD would leave his territory, he would kind of infamously just try to find the next African-American star.
He tried, man. First it was Butch Reed, then it was the Snowman. Oh, my God.
That's right.
What a hoot that was.
Well, there's only one JYD. He's got charisma out the ass. Ultimately, Rocky is only going to last about 3 years in the WWF before working the rest of his career bouncing around on the indies and having to get a shoot job. Why do you think he didn't last very long in a featured role in wrestling? What was he missing?
Because he was just a cartoon.
Okay.
He wasn't serious about anything.
So being silly is one thing, but you've got to be able to like flip that switch and
he
fight.
Never flipped the switch.
Okay. It was all just flash and show with him.
Yeah.
Well, moving on from teaming with Rocky, you're getting into singles action with Greg the Hammer Valentine, third from the top in the Charlotte Coliseum. This was a big show in the territory, and Greg was a very well-established star during this period. Yeah. As we've mentioned, you've been kind of relegated to tag team wrestling up to this point for the most part. This has got to feel like an opportunity to kind of prove yourself as a singles worker.
Yeah,
right?
I did, man. It was real important to me to go out there and have a great match with Greg. And we did. We went out and did about 20, 25 minutes.
Wow.
And we got our shit in. And I showed them that I could carry it. Because I hated tag teams. I just hated them.
Now, was there anybody that you would tag team with? Not even necessarily here, but over the course of your career that you enjoyed? Nobody.
No. Hell no. Fuck no.
Not even like The Undertaker later on down the
No,
road.
I don't know.
You just can't tell your story that way, right?
No, I couldn't. As soon as I got it established, they'd go in and fuck it up.
I mean, there's something to be said there because two guys not on the same page. Like, look, a lot of guys made tag team wrestling like a main event. Like, I'm thinking
Oh
of
yeah.
Arn and Tully. Some guys were great at it because they were always
Yeah.
on the same page. But you're just kind of an outside the box thinker, and maybe it didn't quite work that well with somebody, right?
Didn't work for me, man. Never
Now,
did.
Valentine has a reputation of being a legitimate tough guy in the business. Was that your experience around Greg? Did you get that?
Oh
impression?
yeah. He was a stiffy.
Out there, he was a little rough.
Oh
in the ring?
yeah. Oh yeah. It's like he dropped that elbow on him. That was his big thing, right?
Yeah.
He didn't hit you with the elbow. He hit you with his whole fucking lat. You know, he crushed your fucking chest, man. He knocked the air out of you. He didn't mind taking it. You know, if he tatered you, he was willing to take one back. I know because I gave him a bunch of them.
So, like, are you working the same way? Because you and I have talked about you stepping into the ring with guys who are a little bit stiff or a little bit rough out
Yeah.
there, and you're not afraid to give it back to them.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, what's your mode? Are you kind of on the snug side, or do you
Snug.
go light? Yeah,
Snug.
but you'll go a little bit harder if you got a guy like Greg who's really.
Oh
throwing
God,
it up.
yeah. He gets 3 notches up.
Now,
In other words, my hands will be sore at the end of the match.
Now, has it ever happened that somebody's come at you a little too rough and you got to give them the old, like, hey, slow it down or back off sort of a thing?
Oh yeah, Macho Man.
Okay.
You know, he would come at you a million miles an hour, man.
Would he listen when you'd ask him to back off?
No. So I just grab a hold of him and let him go.
So you
Let
grab
him-
him and blow him up?
Blow him up. Then after he was blown up, I could do anything I wanted.
Now, Greg's ring style obviously pretty snug. Is there any other like descriptors that you would put in there for him? He's not like a technical guy. He's more just like
No.
a go out there and kind of push you
Well,
around.
He's very slow. He's very just grind it out. Take you right to the edge and pull you back in, man. You know, it was very solid. It was very believable. And everything meant something. Everything meant something.
No wasted motion kind of a
No,
guy.
not at all.
So Greg is a veteran among the two of you, but I know that you like to call matches and paint the picture for the audience yourself. Under those circumstances, do you just bite your tongue and follow his lead?
No, I called it.
Did you really?
Yeah.
This whole calling matches stuff, it's come up here on the podcast a few times just because, like, to me as an outsider, I'm just like, how do you know when? Like, is he going to get offended if you go out there and start calling spots, or how does it work?
No, he didn't mind.
Okay. So you're able to just go out there and start doing it, and he's like, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like you were some rookie either. You'd certainly put
No.
in some years, and we're ready for it.
Yeah, it was.
A lot of people say that Greg has always got a full gas tank and would keep coming and coming, even getting stronger as the match went on. Was that your experience with him?
Absolutely. He just kept that train coming, man. Chug, 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 chug. And it didn't. You can't stop the train. It's gonna come. It's gonna come to you. You know. So you better get out of the fucking way.
Now, the other guy I hear that about all the time is Steve Austin. Would you say that those two have pretty similar styles in that regard?
Yeah, in that regard, yeah.
Okay. Aside from
Steve
that,
kept coming. Yeah.
not too much alike.
No.
You ever go partying with Greg? I know that he was no stranger to the party scene.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Did anything jump out?
No, I can't remember.
Well, it sounds like it must have been a good night.
I plead the fifth.
That's probably the safer route.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, you're back in tag team competition after this, but fortunately, it's your chance to team up with Wahoo against the Andersons in the Greensboro Coliseum. Jake, Greensboro is going to be the site of Sting's last match at AEW Revolution, and it's kind of considered home base for Mid-Atlantic at this time, right?
Right.
Now, would you say that an event like that is as big as it got in the territory, or was there another building that was considered,
You know,
the
it
biggest
was
show?
Greensboro was the big show.
Okay, and I mean, you're working with Ole, who's kind of a power player in the company at the time. Is it safe to assume that it would represent a large payout?
That's a good one.
Not so much.
No, I think it was less than 500.
Wow. What do you think Ole made if you had to guess?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know because he was booking at the time too.
Right, so he's kind of double dipping.
Yeah.
Now, you said 500 there, and I know that as we just mentioned, Greensboro was one of the better territories, and you had said before that you were kind of getting stuck down, in like Charleston or something
Charleston,
like
Camden, South Carolina. Fuck me, man. Florence, South Carolina.
that. So small
Yeah.
towns,
Yes.
shitty crowds. I mean, so if $500 in Greensboro, you
Yeah.
able to tell us what you were making elsewhere?
Well, elsewhere, that would have been my week,
Oh man. So I don't blame you for quitting a couple times here in Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, on the same card, Steamboat would lose the Mid-Atlantic heavyweight title to Roddy Piper, and after you're gonna team up with Ricky for a TV match against the Grappler and Super Destroyer. Let's drop in on the final moments of that one.
Bear hug. And again, Roberts is motioning for Rick Steamboat. And here comes Roddy Piper in the Roddy Piper. And here comes Ole Anderson. Wait a minute. And they're just about to annihilate Roberts in the corner while Ole and Piper are having a real
They're trying to distract the referee.
knockdown drag out with the referee.
Steamboat and Roberts, they've got their hands full. Needs to make the tag. He's got to make that tag. They can't wrestle 4 men. They can't wrestle 4 men.
David, it was almost like a bulldog. Where Roberts got the grappler in, slammed at it.
Come on, make that tag. Jake, make it. Stretch it, make the tag. Okay.
Here comes Steamboat over the top rope with a judo chop and another one now to Super
Double thrust.
Destroyer.
Takes both men on. Steamboat's got him now.
Well, all four now are in the ring.
Double thrust. Steamboat's got Grappler down. They're trying to...
Piper's going to pull him out.
That's it.
And referee
That's
Sonny
it.
Fargo says ring the bell. They're going to be disqualified as Steamboat now is fighting with Piper, fighting with Ole Anderson.
Well, he's got Piper in the ring.
We got 6 wrestlers now, all going at it. Piper and Steamboat. Ole Anderson is trying to get in to help Piper.
Look at Piper. Piper and
Piper's
Steamboat.
trying to get out. And Steamboat
Almost landed on his head.
right over that top rope trying to get to him.
All right. So, man, some pretty hot action there with you and
Oh,
Piper.
yeah.
And, again, it's you guys are looking like you're, Piper has certainly been programmed with Steamboat's been programmed with Piper. It kind of makes sense that, okay, it looks like you are probably going to be squaring off with Ole, which you will here. But again, it's kind of just stuck in the tag team situation.
Yeah. See, the bad thing was only because he was the booker, he didn't work every night of the week.
Oh.
So that's the reason I was getting thrown into tag teams and bullshit. And that's the reason I go to the smaller towns, because Ole was just booking and he didn't work every night.
So he was set to be your consistent rival, but he just wasn't there often enough.
Yeah, he'd work 2-3 days a week.
Okay, so that's, man, what a weird, fucked up, strange situation for you to be in.
It sucked.
Right, because you're coming into this territory and there's opportunity there, but it's kind of not there at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, brutal. I mean, you and Ricky, it's, obviously you guys are both, going to go on to be Hall of Famers, both really skilled. Would you say that the two of you had enough opportunities to work together to develop good tag team chemistry?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had it good. We had a lot of fun out there.
Now, how would you compare your chemistry with him in a tag team as opposed to a couple years later as his opponent?
Oh, much better as his opponent.
Oh,
Oh yeah. Oh
now
yeah.
now is that just because you had a little bit more control over the flow of the match that way?
That, and I was more seasoned then.
Okay.
You know, this is the early part of me just getting it going. By the time I got to him in the WWE, I was ready. I was completely ready.
We can definitely see shades of what you're about to become. I think you really started to kind of feel it here in a couple years whenever you went to Georgia. That's when it was like, okay,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah, I
this
was
guy's
there.
catching
Yeah.
fire. Yep.
Yeah.
So I know that you don't like being a tag team, as we've discussed. Did Steamboat seem like he felt similarly?
You know, Steamer, he liked tag teams, but he liked tag teaming with Jay Youngblood.
Well, they were a good pair.
Yeah. They were a good tag team.
And they had like similar look and sort of a similar
Yeah.
vibe where it was like they look like a tag team. However, Steamboat is going to grow out that mustache here coming up. So clearly your fingerprints are all over this situation. Jake, something that we haven't discussed yet on the show is the fact that you're here wearing traditional black wrestling trunks.
Yeah.
And you're going to keep that look as you go into Florida with Kevin Sullivan. Why did you initiate the change to the karate pants?
I just liked them better, man. I've always had skinny legs. So I was tired of it.
So you're trying to just cover up those legs.
Damn straight.
I mean, it doesn't get hot as a motherfucker out there while you're wrestling
No.
wearing pants, though?
No.
Not too bad?
No, not at all.
You'd work against the Grappler and Super Destroyer again this month with the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, as your partner. So yet another tag team partner. You traveled with Boogie and Steamboat during this period, right?
Yeah.
How was that?
Fuck, all Boogie did was sleep. That guy slept all the time, man.
Was he high?
No.
So I was going to ask you if you had any good travel stories with Jimmy, but it sounds like his ass was just passed out the whole time.
He was asleep, man. He was asleep.
Isn't that like breaking a cardinal rule in wrestling? You're supposed to stay awake for the other guy?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
But he'd get in the back seat, brother, and that was it.
Oh, so he's not even up front with you. He'd get in the back and
No,
lay
he'd
down?
get in the back and just boom.
That's fucked up, man. On a road trip? Come on. Are you still in contact with Jimmy? You ever talk to him anymore? I
haven't talked to him in a long time, man. I'd like to talk to him.
You'd make a fun guest. I'll have to see if I can get in touch with him. All right, well, let's get to the big Thanksgiving Day tournament. You're back in the Greensboro Coliseum. And Jake, do you remember what was on the line for this tournament?
No, a Cadillac.
That's right. It's a Cadillac is on the line. I suspect I already know the answer, but does the winner actually get to keep a caddy?
Fuck no. Yeah, if he buys it. Usually the guy that can buy the Cadillac was the guy that won.
Okay, so when you won the tournament, you actually got a pretty decent purse?
Well, you got the same old shit, but you got the Cadillac too, but the Cadillac came out of your pocket.
Oh, that's fucked up.
Fuck yeah, man. Are you kidding me?
Now, I believe that you don't win this tournament, but I believe you're going to win one or maybe even two of these Cadillac tournaments during your time in Mid-Atlantic. Is that right?
Yeah, I won a couple of them.
All right. But the caddies, you didn't end up taking them home.
No, I couldn't even afford to wash one.
Not on the shit they were paying when you were out there in Charleston or whatever. Well, Jake, it feels like you're neither fish nor fowl at this point because you keep bouncing between tag teams and singles like in this tournament.
Yeah.
I know you well enough by now to know that you aren't afraid to let people know what you're thinking. Are you approaching the Crockett's or Ole with your desire to just go full-time singles?
Oh, yeah.
And what's the response like from them?
Didn't matter. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do, boy.
Oh, my God.
Sometimes it don't fit.
That's probably not an answer you love, especially while you're in the middle of like not getting great money.
No, you don't, man.
So you had said that you quit twice.
Yeah.
Is it like a little bit further down the line from this, or?
Yeah, it's right about this time.
Oh, okay, you would have quit, and then they brought you back.
Yeah.
Okay, with promise of giving you more, right?
Right.
Well, in the first round of this tournament, you're going to beat Mike Davis, who most fans will know later in his career when he goes on to become one of the rock and roll RPMs with Tommy Lane. Jake, did you get much time around Davis?
Too much time.
Too much?
Yeah.
What was he like?
He wasn't too much, man.
No?
No, Mike was a nice guy. That's all I'll say.
Party guy?
I don't recall.
Oh, okay. Well, so he might have been then. In the next round of the tournament, you lost your match with Ivan Koloff. As many listeners of the show know, Ivan was the wrestler that ended Bruno Sammartino's legendary run with the WWF title in '71. So a real legend in the business by this point.
Yeah.
What was Ivan like in the ring?
A fucking machine.
Yeah?
Oh, God, yeah. He'd blow you up so fast, man. Oh, my God, it was horrible.
No shit.
I remember thinking I was going to die. He just kept coming. I could not get him off of me. And I was bumping the shit out of him, man, but he was right back on me.
So he's just down and up, lightning fast.
Oh, yeah. It was
Wow.
crazy. It was crazy how fast he was.
So, looking back on it now, you're still a young guy at this time, but looking back on it now, was there any way with a guy like that to slow him down?
No.
So leaning on him wouldn't work. Nothing you can do would work. Oh, man. Yeah, I think it's also worth noting here that you were a smoker at this time. So, I mean, you might be the younger of the two, but you've got a habit that impacts your lungs.
Yeah.
How would you balance your cardio with your smoking habit during your time wrestling?
There was no balance. I'd balance it in my lips. That was it.
Now,
balance. Are you fucking kidding me?
Here's the thing, though, is you don't look like you're getting blown up very often, and you could say the same all the way through your time during your first round of the WWF. I wasn't seeing you get blown up.
No.
So, how in the fuck does that work?
I just timed it right, man.
Okay.
I sold a lot.
Gotcha. That would give you an opportunity to kind of catch your wind.
Catch my wind.
Okay. Well, look, I think it's also worth noting here that Blackjack Mulligan is going to win this tournament, and on the way, he's going to face and defeat Sergeant Slaughter. Jake, the two of us had a phone call earlier today, and you told me that you might just have a little story about these two.
Oh, my God. It was in Hampton, Virginia. And back in those days, they didn't have barricades around the rings. They just had, like in movie theaters, they'd have a post with a rope in between. Well, they went outside the ring, and Slaughter grabbed him by the back of the head and took his head and went down on the post, right?
Yeah.
Well, he missed his head and hit him right in the fucking mouth.
Oh.
And the post went in his mouth. But his teeth went further back.
They push back.
It folded his teeth completely over.
Ugh.
His lip was hanging out of his mouth, but his teeth was inside his lip. And when he stood up, man, blood was going everywhere. And he just roared. Well, Slaughter had rolled back in the ring. And he roared, and he just looked at fucking Slaughter, just stared a hole in him. And he come in the ring just and reared back and football kicked Slaughter in the nuts. Slaughter didn't go down.
No.
He fucking drew back and punched Mulligan. Slaughter's a tough son of a bitch.
That's a hell of a man.
Tough, double tough son of a bitch.
I mean, especially Mulligan, who's got this reputation for just being tough as nails.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when you see these two back in the locker room after this, that's just
no, brother. We all ran. We ran.
You got the hell out.
We got the fuck out of there.
Holy shit, man. I mean, how long was Blackjack down? He had to go get dental surgery, I imagine.
Oh, he 2 or 3 days.
That's it.
They just sewed it all up.
No, he doesn't give a shit. He'll just go back out there with all the stitches and stuff in.
Yeah.
Damn, dude. That is
It was
insane.
horrifying, man. It was horrifying.
Wow. So would you say that's the worst injury that you've witnessed?
No. I seen a guy named John Black broke his neck in the ring.
Oh, did he die?
And he paralyzed him from his neck down.
Good Lord. Do you remember how it happened?
Yeah, a pile driver.
Now, I've heard you say before that you don't like taking pile drivers. Is that why?
Yeah.
It's funny because, I've seen a lot of footage of your matches over the years, and I stumbled across a photo of DiBiase giving you a pile driver, and I was like, I've never seen that before.
I didn't like it, but I trusted him.
So if it's a guy like DiBiase who's great in the ring, you're like, okay, this guy can do it.
Still, I don't like for it to happen.
No, especially you with a bad neck, it's been recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So Mulligan ruled this territory from the 70s into the early 80s. When you made the jump to Mid-Atlantic, was it the first time that you crossed paths with the big guy?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd seen him wrestle my father.
Oh, had you?
Yeah.
He must have been pretty young at that time, wrestling your dad.
Yeah.
Now, overall, Blackjack, what did you think of him? Ring work and,
I loved him. I loved him, man. Great guy.
It's funny because it kind of shows on camera when the two of you are together. You guys have got good chemistry on screen, and it just seems like you guys are having fun, whether it's here or in the WWF a few years later.
Yeah.
Were you spending a ton of time with him outside of the ring as well?
Not so much. No.
Okay.
No. Just a mutual respect.
Now, what about Barry? Because you and he would be tag teaming. You're close.
Barry and I spent a lot of time together, in Florida.
Okay.
Whenever he was with Dusty, I was with Sullivan. So.
But here in Mid-Atlantic, you guys aren't really traveling together or anything?
No, I didn't travel with him. I traveled with Steamboat.
And Sleepy Valiant.
Yeah.
Well, look, Blackjack was one of those guys who'd seen and done it all by this time in his career. He'd worked in MSG against Bruno, against Andre, under Vince Sr. Would you consider him a guy that you learned a lot from at this time?
Oh, sure.
What kind of things do you learn from a vet like Blackjack?
Learn when to keep your mouth shut. Timing.
Okay.
Timing.
Not sure when we're going to have a chance to discuss this again, so might as well ask you right now. You're in the middle of your run with the WWF in 1990 when Blackjack and his son Kendall Windham are arrested by the Secret Service for counterfeiting. The authorities found close to $500,000 in phony $20 bills, and the two had spent 24 months in federal prison. Holy shit, dude. What's your reaction when you hear about this mess?
Holy fuck. Holy fuck, man. That surprised the fuck out of everybody.
Good Lord, man. $500,000.
Don't want no part of that shit.
Were you in contact with Mulligan at all, like during the period leading up to this while he was counterfeiting, apparently?
No.
Probably a good thing. You don't need to be getting a call from the feds.
Fuck no.
All right, well, back in 1981, you're going to be paired with Blackjack as your next tag team partner, and this weird tag team carousel you're on just keeps going. It makes me curious, Jake, would you say that you improve more or learn more when you're in a consistent program with the same people like you would in other territories?
Absolutely.
Is it better?
Absolutely.
Better than like kind of switching around from guy to guy?
Yeah, when you flip-flopping back and forth to everything, you never get any groundwork done. You don't have to, you don't get your sense of timing with the guy. You got to have timing, man. That's what it's all about. Know when to fart and when to move, when to not do this, not do that, and then you have expectations. You learn to expect certain things from them at certain times. But if you're constantly changing partners, there's no way that you can ever get that down and get it crisp. It'll always be a little bit off. and that little bit hurts.
You know, it is interesting hearing you say that because, like, the more I'm thinking about it here as we're sitting here, it's like, well, some of the best tag teams spent literally all their time together, like the Steiners and
Absolutely.
Arn and Tully, Hall and Nash. Like, these guys developed chemistry and got to know each other so well that their timing in the ring was just, they probably just looked at each other and knew what to do.
Absolutely.
Just, it was never your thing, never found a tag team partner that you quite jived with.
No.
When we last left off talking about Blackjack Mulligan Jr. as your tag team partner, who fans, of course, know better as Barry Windham. And you're on this never-ending carousel of partners that, just come and go. On the bright side, you and Barry seem to have some really incredible chemistry. And, one thing that stands out as I watch back a lot of your work together is really quick in and out kind of tags between the two of you. Like, very, like, it seems like you guys are using one brain in these tag team matches. What can you tell us about getting to know Barry and forming this chemistry with him?
It was a natural thing, man. We didn't have to even work at it. It just seemed like the right thing to do each time we stepped in the ring. We didn't talk about it. We just went out there and looked at each other and just went. It's like we could read each other's minds.
It looks like it on camera. I've been, as we've mentioned here a few times, I'm training with International Wrestling Cartel here in Pittsburgh. And so I'm starting to watch wrestling differently in that I'm trying to watch for guys calling spots and see the communication between tag team partners. It's more like you'll glance over at him or something and you two are just instantly on the same page and off to the races.
That's it. A glance was all we needed.
It's pretty amazing stuff, and we're going to post some videos from it on social media. So get over to social media and have a look at some of these tag team matches that Jake is in with Barry. Man, really underrated combination. And something like that, I know, again, you hate tag team wrestling, but man, something cool like that, it's like, I could have seen you guys as a long-term tag team.
It could have worked if if they'd have ever given us the opportunity. But the whole problem in Mid-Atlantic was I was being fed different partners and doing the same thing.
Yep.
We never got in the ring with anybody that it really meant anything. We just had job matches, where we'd go out and beat up two guys. Really frustrating.
And that's exactly to your point. You would do that with Steamboat. You would do that with, I think, Blackjack Sr. on a few occasions. I mean, the list just goes on. And it's like, boy, really just kind of spinning your tires.
Dory Funk. Yeah. I mean, I just had partners out the ass, man, but no meals to chew on. No angles.
I'm going to go back through and look at, do a count on all the tag team partners you have by the time we get to the end of talking about Mid-Atlantic. I would guarantee it's going to be a list of 10 or 12 different partners.
Oh, yeah. Jay Youngblood, another one.
Yep. Jay Youngblood. Actually, we're about to talk about you teaming up with Ray Stevens here.
Oh, wow.
So we'll get to that in a second. And I can't wait to talk to you about Ray Stevens. But before we do, I did want to talk to you more about Barry Windham. You crossed paths with Windham a lot over the course of your career. Would you say that you picked up anything from him or that you taught him anything as the two of you were working together?
I don't know, man. I think we just fed off each other and we just learned. A great opportunity for me and for him. To have somebody in there the same stature, the same age, and just be able to go with it.
Like, you're not going to find two guys with more in common than you and Barry Windham back in those days. You guys are like the same height, look very similar, work very similar, both second-generation stars. It's like, no wonder you guys were like a tag team made in heaven.
We were, man. It was absolutely fabulous, man. But the only time we ever did it was on television and the secondary towns. We never went to the major towns. We just got fed the secondary towns, and nobody wanted to be there, and the opponents we had didn't want to be there. Nobody wanted to fucking be there.
If the wrestlers don't want to be there, probably the fans don't really want to be there either.
Oh, I'm telling you.
Well, you and Barry would show that same chemistry in singles matches just a year later in Florida with you as the antagonistic heel. But here, you guys are both baby faces, and it's really strange seeing you cut these promos that are like you're cutting some. They're good. They're good promos, but they're very like white meat baby face style approach. What can you tell us about cutting these promos as compared to like the sinister tone that you'd come to be known for?
Well, I was just getting into the learning thing, man, and you know, Mid-Atlantic was the first time that really got a lot of mic time. You know, we had a lot of mic time there. You know, whether you were doing interviews for the tape itself or for their individual cities where you do promos for each town. They lasted, 3 minutes. So you got to do something in 3 minutes. So the white meat babyface thing was that's where I've been put. I couldn't go out and do that sinister shit, but I was learning. In fact, I don't know if you can find it, but I went to the Crockett's TV truck and made friends there. And we put together a 3-minute highlight reel of my matches.
No way.
And we played it to the music of Pink Floyd. And it was really pretty cool. And at the end of the song, you hear an airplane going down. And I'm looking at a guy and giving him a DDT in slow motion. And as it hits, the plane explodes. And as I turn over and pin the guy and look into the camera, a baby starts to cry. So I made that, but I couldn't fucking use it. Where can I put it into play? I couldn't put it into play in Crockett's territory because it was straight out heel shit.
Yep.
But I did use it later on in life.
As you were saying that, it started to ring a bell, and I was like, okay, wait a minute. This is familiar. And then as soon as you said the baby starts crying at the end, it clicked. You used it in Georgia when you were booking there.
I sure did.
Yep.
Sure
So
did.
nobody gave a single shit about like copyright laws or whatever back then. You're using Pink Floyd's music. It's, hey, brother, it's on TV. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I did it, and I was quite proud of it.
It's really good.
I thought it was.
So you made friends with guys in the production truck. Were you actually sitting like overseeing them as they were editing, or was Jake the Snake doing a little video editing?
I was overseeing them.
Okay, so you were just kind of telling them where you wanted everything.
Right.
And man, dude, that is awesome to know that you had a huge hand in producing that. I saw that video not that long ago. I'm gonna find it again and share it so that everybody can have a look. That is really cool, Jake.
Yeah, man. Thought you might like that.
Well, as we move on here, I mentioned it. You are going to be paired with Blackjack Mulligan Jr. and the legendary Ray Stevens in a 6-man tag team match against Ivan Koloff and Gene and Ole Anderson. So as I did research on this one, I was just blown away. I mean, Ray is a guy who influenced so many wrestlers from your generation, and here you are tag teaming with him. What was it like working with Ray?
Well, it only happened one time.
Yeah.
That I remember. And then he blew his knee out.
No shit.
Yeah. Sure did, man. But no, I remember that night, man. I'm like looking at the card going, holy fuck, here we go. Finally. But the bottom line is they wanted to shoot an angle with Ray Stevens and Koloff.
Yep.
So we were just out there to pad the fucking walls.
Because Ray at this time, he's older than you guys, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they're like, okay, let's put him with like the hot young tag team and they can take all the bumps and then he can come do like the cleanup work sort of thing.
Do the cleanup work and shoot the angle.
So on one hand, it's like, hey man, as a fan of wrestling, pretty awesome moment for you where it's like Ray Stevens, this legendary performer, and you're teamed up with him. On the other side, now that you're older and you can look back with a perspective, it's like, okay, but they were just kind of using me.
They were using me totally. I
Yeah.
knew it.
Oh, you even knew it back then.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Man, would you say that you took any influence from Stevens like so many of your peers did?
I don't know. That would be for the fans to say. I don't see it. I may have done it. I didn't intentionally do it, but I may have picked up something. I'm sure I picked up something.
Ray, again, he's one of those guys who connected with fans for decades and decades. And yeah, like Ric Flair references him all the time as a guy that he took stuff from. He'll admit directly, like, I took a lot from Ray Stevens.
Yeah.
What do you think it was about Ray that made him so unique?
He was just a hand, man. He knew where he was going, and nobody else did. But he knew where to go, man, and he knew how to get it done. And there's not one thing that you can just point out, but it's just always been there, man. I mean, when you sit down with Ray Stevens, you sit down with the best.
Mm.
And he was definitely one of the best.
Man, cool as hell, again, that you got to work with him. Just another one of those moments where, as I kind of go over your career timeline as I'm doing research, I'm like, Jake worked with him? And there's another moment like that coming up in here, which I can't wait to talk to you about. But behind the scenes, Ray, good dude, or, again, it's a really competitive business. I could also see a veteran coming in kind of having a chip on his shoulder.
He kind of had his own clique going on, man.
Okay.
He was hanging with Ole and those guys.
So your interactions with him, probably handshake, nice to meet you. That's it.
That was about it.
Okay.
Thank you, kid.
Well, hey, that's better than you'll get from some veterans, probably.
Yeah, true that.
Along the way here in December 81, you're going to be part of another Cadillac tournament, and you'll defeat Greg Valentine in the final to win the tournament. And then, Jake, in January, you're in yet another one of these tournaments, and you win again, this time beating Sergeant Slaughter. So first off, here's what I find so weird about this whole thing, this whole run with you, is you're stuck in this limbo from a creative standpoint, but you're winning these tournaments and beating some of the biggest stars in the territory, like clean singles matches. Man,
but I'm not driving a fucking Cadillac.
So that's the next question, but we'll just ask it right now. A few fans reached out last time we discussed this, and they were confused about how it actually works. Was it that you were getting to buy it? If you won the tournament, you had the option to buy the Cadillac at cost from the dealer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fuck.
So they're not giving you a fucking Cadillac. You're not winning 2 Cadillacs over in the course of 2 months.
Hell no.
So you never took the deal from the dealers and bought that caddy?
I couldn't afford it, man.
Apparently they weren't paying you all that great during this period, right?
They weren't.
Were you being promised things that weren't being delivered by the bookers?
Absolutely. I walked out 3 times.
Wow.
I said, fuck you guys, I'm done. I walked out 3 times, and each time they talked me into coming back. And each time when I got back, nothing fucking changed.
Do you think it's...
They're putting you over in a Cadillac tournament, but guess what? They're not shooting a fucking angle. They're not giving you something that you can go back to and work with and build. Nothing. That's what I needed. I needed a long program with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Not a one-shot deal. Yeah, I beat Slaughter. Big fucking deal. I mean, it's a great thing to beat Slaughter. I'm not taking away from that. But the bottom line is that was in one town, and that was it.
I think that a lot of fans say well, Jake is he's being positioned well because he's going over. It's like being positioned well is getting a really strong program.
Absolutely.
And that's the big difference.
Build. That way you can show them that you draw, that you put asses in seats,
Mm-hmm.
that because of what you're doing, you're building a program that's drawing more and more and more. That's what you want.
And if you're in a strong storyline, who gives a shit if you win or lose? It's really just about getting over with the crowd.
I don't give a damn about winning and losing, man. Just give me that storyline that I can play out.
And by the way, that's exactly how things would go in your career. We talked about the incredible 1990 to 1991, 92 that you had in the WWF. All incredible storylines. It doesn't matter if you beat Earthquake on these shows or he was beating you. It was, holy shit, what a great story. Can't wait to tune in next week.
Absolutely. And we put asses in seats.
Sure did. Well, I'm wondering what seat your ass was in as far as driving a car. You were not in a Cadillac. What were you driving at the time, Jake?
At the time, I was driving like a 77 T-Bird.
Wow, pretty awesome car.
It was a piece of shit.
Oh.
One of the Japanese that came over to the States, and he put about 100,000 miles on it. And then sold it to Ricky Steamboat, who put another 20,000 on it. And then I bought it and put about 15,000 on it and parked it one night. And there was a female involved.
Mm-hmm.
And we parked it someplace and went in her car. And when I got back, my car was totally destroyed.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, I can't say for sure because I wasn't there, but I would think it was the boyfriend.
Oh, shit.
So,
oh, man. All right. Did you know that night that you were with a lady who had a fella in her life?
I did.
Okay. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the insurance didn't cover you.
Yes, it did.
It did?
In fact, I was able to buy an 82 Trans Am after money. It was quite a step up.
So you got laid and you got a new car?
Absolutely.
Come on, man.
That's in the Cadillac tournament.
That is way better than beating Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah.
Well, as you're driving around this piece of shit, before you wind up with the Trans Am, if you're the driver back in these days, Jake, which it sounds like you were on many occasions with Boogie Woogie sleeping in the back, what's the deal for the guys who rode with you? Is it payment by the mile, or what do you guys do?
Payment by the mile, man. 3 cents a mile.
3 cents a mile. So would you make out pretty decent on some of these trips?
Fuck no. By the time you think about the gas and the wear and tear on your car, no, you're not making out.
Oh, no.
We'll figure it out. 300 miles.
Okay.
So that'd be 600 for the trip, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's $18.
Yeah, that's not very good.
No, and you put 3 guys in there. So that's what, $48? No, $54. Whatever.
And in the meantime, you got to pay for gas, which is probably costing you more because you're hauling 3 big dudes in your car.
Right.
So maybe not worth it.
Able to buy your beer.
Well, see, now that would be the deal, I think, for me. Like, hey, you guys just buy my beer this whole trip.
I'd have made out better that way.
Probably. Now, it doesn't sound like it was always fun to drive, but like I've heard a lot of guys say that they prefer to drive. But how did you feel about it? You like doing it?
Yeah, I did.
Why is that? You just like to have the control over the car?
I like the control, and I don't like being left alone on foot.
I got you. Well, one of the things we hear a lot in wrestling, and something that was just discussed on one of the shows I produce, is that wrestlers would often carry weapons on them while they traveled, and even into the locker room. Did you carry a weapon while you were on the road?
No, I didn't.
Now, what stopped? Because that's apparently a thing. Because a lot of times you're getting paid in cash, and you got to go from town to town. What kept you from doing it?
I just, at that age, I knew that if I had a gun, I'd probably use it.
Okay.
and I didn't want to do that.
You still had, like, you were a young man and still had a little bit of a wild streak in you.
Oh, I had a real wild streak in me.
Do you remember any folks that were carrying guns or knives or whatever that while they were on the road?
Piper.
Wow.
For sure. I can't think of anybody else right off the bat. I mean, I just don't think about things like that. Pretty sure Ole did.
He seems like a guy who would, yes.
There's others.
I mean, we hear the guys like, I don't know, Dr. D. David Schultz would always have a gun on him and guys like that.
Yeah.
And this is a business full of like alpha male personalities and some guys with maybe some questionable backgrounds at times.
Yeah.
Did you ever see any of the boys use their weapons or threaten to use their weapons?
Just Piper.
Can you tell us the circumstances surrounding that?
Yeah, I had pulled a snake out on him. And he got to his briefcase and pulled that pistol out and had it in my face.
Holy shit.
And he was shaking like a leaf. He was not bullshitting.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this was during your time in the WWF then?
No, this was in Mid-Atlantic.
Okay.
I'd gotten a hold of a snake.
Gotcha. And so he's petrified of snakes and he was willing to shoot you over it.
Yep.
Holy shit, man.
Yep. Lucky to get out of that one.
I'm just gonna guess you put that snake right back in the bag and diffused it.
Fucking right, I did.
It's probably best for business.
Yeah.
I
remember who set me up for that rib.
Oh.
Somebody set me up to put the snake on Piper.
Okay, so you weren't just trying to play a joke yourself. Somebody was like, "Oh, this would be really funny."
Right. They urged me to do it. And they would help me set him up where he'd have his back to me.
Boy, almost getting shot is a pretty stiff rib.
Yeah, it is.
Well, before we move off of traveling, because this is something the fans are always asking about, and this is a question I see come up a lot on shoot interviews: who is the best wheelman in the history of the business?
Oh, I don't know, man. Steamboat was pretty good. Johnny Weaver was good.
Okay.
My father was real good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was a real good wheelman.
Just like guys you can rely on to not fall asleep at the wheel or whatever.
Right. Yeah, he was a workhorse.
Another name that stuck out as a guy you'll work with on numerous occasions between 1981 and 82 is Carl Fergie, and many fans will remember Carl as a referee in Mid-South Wrestling during your time there. But before that, he was like calling himself the pretty boy, and he was a heel wrestler in Mid-Atlantic. Another one of those names, Jake, that we will not likely discuss often on the show. What can you tell us about Carl?
Carl was a great guy, man. He was a great guy, really good guy, and not a bad worker either. And hell, when I first met him, he was tag teamed up with Booker, who was like one of the Moondogs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They were a tag team in Mid-South. Larry Booker and Carl Fergie.
That's a pretty unique tag team, a combination you wouldn't really think of.
Yeah. And they had a good little thing going, but it wasn't going nowhere. Bill Watts wasn't going to push them, but neither did the Crockett's. So you never got anything out of the Crockett's.
So Carl, like you, because if I remember right, it was like a few of you made the jump from Mid-South to Mid-Atlantic. He was one of those guys.
He's one of those guys you got picked up and done nothing with.
Better worker or a better referee?
Probably better referee.
Okay.
He was a great worker, though. It's not really fair to call that.
Maybe he's just great at both.
Yeah, he was. He definitely was.
Well, here's where things start to get pretty interesting. Do you remember who Fergie was teaming with at the time in Mid-Atlantic, 1982?
Ox Baker.
That's right. Very good. You'll team up with both Blackjack Jr. and Jay Youngblood on a few occasions to take on Fergie and Baker. And man, again, this is one of the things I love about researching this is you find out these tidbits, and I'm like, I cannot believe that Jake worked with Ox Baker. That is incredible.
Absolutely horrible.
Baker was horrible?
Oh, my God. You couldn't knock him down. If you knocked him down, he was like a cockroach on his back. He couldn't get up. He could not get up. He would lay there and the big old cockroach. And Carl would come in and grab his hand and pull him over to the corner and then pull him up to his feet.
Holy shit, man.
And meanwhile, you're in the middle of the ring twiddling your thumbs.
Right, because he just bumped for you, so in theory you should be on him or waiting for him, and you can't do anything.
Nothing.
Oh my God, dude, that's amazing.
Just a dead spot in the match.
This would have been the only time in your career that you were around Ox, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how much do you know about his history in wrestling?
I don't know a whole lot.
Really old school background and style. Sounds like he wasn't necessarily a great worker, but he's got a reputation for being one of the nicest guys in wrestling behind the scenes, despite his ruthless character. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would.
Did you ever hear the story about him nearly starting a riot in Cleveland with Ernie Ladd?
No.
Okay, so he had like the heart punch, and what the promoters, what they were doing was he had worked with this guy and gave him the heart punch, and a couple weeks later the guy died of, it was just congestive heart failure. But the promoters said like, oh, Ox Baker killed him. Yep.
Yeah.
And then it happened again where he wrestled a guy, and like 2 weeks later the guy died. So they're like, he killed another guy, and it was completely unrelated, of course. But so now he's starting to get all this heat, and he's up in Cleveland with Ernie Ladd, and he's getting heat on him by continually hitting Ladd, and Ladd's not bumping for him, so he keeps giving him the heart punches. And so apparently it starts a riot in Cleveland. And guys were like coming into the ring like with chairs and knives, and like I guess he barely made it out with his fucking life.
Yeah, sounds like a good match.
Seriously, it's like that kind of heat is, I mean, you know, you're doing your job, I guess.
Yeah, I know he did it in Atlanta too, where he gave a guy a heart punch and the guy died later.
Yeah, it's, man, I know that apparently he would never like to talk about it, and he did like carry guilt, but in reality, it was like, I guess he didn't actually ever kill anybody.
No, he never killed anybody.
Can you talk to our listeners a little bit about finding the sweet spot when it comes to getting heat? Because like obviously you want to enrage the crowd, but starting a fucking riot with crazy fans trying to kill you is maybe a little too far.
Yeah, there's a fine line there, you know, and you got to know when to back off. Very few guys know when to back off, especially today, because the fans are so ring smart or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Guarantee you it can still be done.
You think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could cause a riot easy.
Do you really think so?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, coming soon to AEW TV. We're going to get a live riot, folks. You heard it here.
The people want it. The people get it.
I know that when you were in Florida and the Bahamas, you were involved in some pretty hairy situations.
Yeah.
Was there ever another riot that you were involved in?
Yeah.
When else?
In the Bahamas.
Okay.
I was wrestling Brown Sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And we started a riot there. Fucking nearly got me killed.
I think I've heard it. Was this when you had to wrap yourself in like a carpet to escape?
Yeah, right. I rolled up in a big mattress. And I could hear the bricks hitting it. Boom, 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 boom. Because they had already come in the dressing room and they were just standing over me throwing this shit on me, you know?
Holy shit.
Fuck yeah, it was scary as fuck, man. I think I wound up getting 17 stitches.
Even with the mattress?
Yeah, yeah.
Good, like, heads up thinking, though, Jake. Like, a lot of guys would see a mattress on the ground and probably run right past it. You're like, now there's an opportunity, and you wrap yourself up in it.
Wrap myself up in it, man.
Good awareness by the snake, folks.
Yeah.
Blackjack Jr. will move on to singles feud with Sergeant Slaughter, so that puts an end to that shit. And you had just defeated Slaughter in a high-profile Cadillac tournament, so to me, it probably makes more sense to put you with him, but whatever. You're back in tags. As I was doing research on this one, I put in a call to David Crockett, who did tell me that the Crockett saw a lot in you as a performer. And he pointed out that they thought so highly of you that, as you mentioned, they would just welcome you back anytime that, they could get you to come back to the territory, even though you were frustrated.
Yeah.
In hindsight, do you feel like maybe it was a little hasty in departing the territory? Like, because it seems like David and those guys loved you and wanted to do something with you. Maybe they just weren't ready just yet.
Do it, but they wouldn't do it.
Mm.
And you can only take so much, man. You can only stay someplace for so long and doing nothing. And after you do nothing for a period of time, people just don't expect anything out of you anymore.
Yeah.
They give up. And that's the reason I finally came back as a heel, thinking maybe as a heel they'll let me do something. Well, they let me do something, all right. They tagged me up with fucking Dory Funk, who I have all the respect in the world for, but at the age he was way past it.
Mm-hmm.
Way past it. Oh my God, the matches with him were, it's worse than going to the dentist. Oh.
Just like slow plodding kind of style.
Yes. I would go out and start the match, tag him in, and then I knew I might as well just sit down for a while because he was going to spend the next 15 minutes doing his whole fucking spiel.
Oh my God.
Plodding. Plop, 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 plop. Ooh. Plop, 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 plop.
And while he's getting his shit in, you're stuck on the apron with like your thumb up your ass.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh man. Okay. You're painting a very clear picture on why you're frustrated. I get it.
Yeah, me and my manager.
Paul Jones.
Yep. Yeah.
Decent manager or no good?
He was horrible.
So Dory was bad, but Paul was bad too?
Oh, yes.
Why was Paul bad?
Paul was deaf.
Oh, really?
He couldn't hear shit. And he was scared.
Scared?
He was scared a fan was going to knife him.
Oh my gosh. So not only is he deaf and he can't hear like when, you guys are trying to call for a heat spot or whatever from him, right. but then he's afraid to get the heat in the first place.
Absolutely.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's not a good situation to be in, Jake.
Oh, it wasn't. It was horrible.
Well, you're going to continue to tag with Barry here and there, but your new primary partner is Jay Youngblood, as we mentioned before. Before we go here today, Jake, I would like to talk a little bit more about Jay because we didn't cover much on him last time. Not a huge guy, was not a body guy, but by all accounts, a dude could go. What did you think of him as a performer and a promo?
He was a good performer and a decent promo. Yeah, he could go, man.
I've heard it said before that while he was tagging with Steamboat, like the two had great chemistry and they just looked good on like an 8x10 together.
Yeah.
But Steamboat, very straight laced. And apparently he could get really frustrated with Jay's partying lifestyle.
Yeah.
When it came to Jay and his extracurriculars, what kind of stuff were you seeing him up to?
Oh man, I can't really go there. I mean, we were all doing a little bit of cocaine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, folks, it's 1982, and Coke was like it was red hot in America. Like everybody was doing it essentially.
Yeah, it was real hot, man.
It's 42 years later, Jake. Hypothetically, if I were to ask you who might be the best source for getting my hands on some drugs in the Mid-Atlantic locker room, who might you point me in the direction of?
The referee.
Oh, really? Was that shit? Who was that? Tommy Young?
No. It was the other one.
The other one. Shit.
The old man.
The old guy.
Yeah.
No shit. He was the source.
He was the source, man.
How about that?
He had. Do you know that his name was? He refereed under Sonny Fargo, and he had the worst name a human has ever been given.
What was it?
His real legal name was Iggy Obadiah Faggart.
Man, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you guys were ribbing him on a regular basis.
Oh, fuck, man. That was old news.
But that dude was the source for the fun.
He was the source.
So you couldn't be too mean to him about his terrible
No.
name.
No.
Well, a couple questions and we're done. I've heard a few people say that if Jay hadn't passed away in 1985, that he would have been a big star in wrestling. Do you think he had reached his full potential, or was there more opportunity for him beyond what he had achieved?
Yeah, he could have done more. He could have done more for sure.
Yeah, I mean, hell, you can just like the guy comes off the screen, and again, you and I have talked about it here before. It's like the X factor. Some guys just have it, and some don't. And it's something about that guy. It's like I think Vince could have done something with him.
Yeah, he could have done something with him.
Would you say you were close with him, or just working acquaintances?
Working acquaintances.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we're going to talk about Jay more moving forward. Actually, you guys are going to be involved in a big tournament here coming up in Mid-Atlantic, so we'll talk about that. There's a great photo of the two of you walking to the ring, and you've got a little kid kind of trying to hold your hand or get an autograph from you. So we'll share that one online. It's really cool. So we'll talk about it here coming up soon. This is part 2 of our series about 1982 in Mid-Atlantic. We're kind of going on more of a loose basis instead of month by month, so we can kind of cover the full story. But we'll start here. After winning 2 consecutive Cadillac tournaments, you were paired with Jay Youngblood as a regular tag team partner. And on February 7th, 1982, you and Jay would take on Ole Anderson and Stan Hansen in a one-night tournament in front of a big crowd in Greensboro. And so, Jake, I had showed you this photo before we started recording. That is from that day, February 7th, 1982. And Jake, I've got to ask you about the boots. Those are some badass looking boots, and I'm wondering, wrestling is such an insider business back in those days, and finding gear, I can't imagine it's easy. Where were you going to get your ring gear?
I don't remember. I just remember that I took my time looking for the right stuff, and I didn't like stuff that I didn't like cookie cutter stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Find things that were different. These boots were definitely different.
Like, there's a lot going on in this photo, and we're going to talk about more of it. But yeah, that's the first thing that jumped off the page to me. Like, those boots are fucking cool. And I'm in the market personally right now to buy some boots. And I'm looking at those like, boy, I wonder if I could have those remade for me.
That would be good.
I think I might give it a shot, dude, because those are sick. The other thing that I noticed, and I've still got this photo up again, if you're not watching this, please check us out on YouTube so you can kind of get more context. But the other thing I'm wondering about is that there's a little boy there right next to you. And it's interesting because you and Jay are clearly making your entrance, and this kid is just there. It looks like he's trying to hold your hand or get an autograph or something. And it makes me wonder, Jake, were there no barricades in the Greensboro Coliseum?
Nope.
How often were fans just wandering right up to you?
Oh, it happened all the time, man.
You once told a great story about, I think it was Robert Plant coming up to you right before you were going out the curtain. And you're in game mode, right? You're ready to go out there and work. So you were kind of an asshole to him without knowing he was Robert Plant. What's it like when one of these kids is coming up to you?
Well, by that time, I'd learned my lesson. Be careful what you say. It might be somebody that you don't want to offend. And I just try to keep moving. That's the whole thing. Don't stop. If you stop, you're going to get surrounded and you're screwed. Just keep moving.
Hard to be mean when it's a cute kid coming up to you, too, looking for an autograph, right?
Yeah.
Plus, you're a baby face, so I guess you probably had to be nice.
Well, of course I was.
I don't know. There's a little gleam in your eye right now. You sure?
Trust me.
Hey, before I forget about this question, it also pertains to those wrestling boots, and I'm curious, how long would a pair of boots last you back in those days?
Oh, several years.
Really, that long?
Yeah.
What kind of stuff are you doing to care for the boots? Are you do they have to be oiled or something?
That's the funny thing. I never did a damn thing to them.
Really?
I just wipe them off every now and then if they got a bunch of blood on them or whatever, but I'd wipe them off. That was it.
Those boots must have smelled like the monkey house at the zoo after a couple years.
I never put my nose near them.
Well, the Greensboro Coliseum, it's one of the most important venues in the Mid-Atlantic territory and had been for years. By this time, you're no stranger to working in front of large crowds, but would you say that Greensboro was the largest venue or crowd that you had worked in front of up to this point?
Yeah, definitely.
And Jake, we've talked about it before. During this time, you're still kind of feeling out your character. Obviously, you've got the cowboy gimmick going on with the rattlesnake on the hat, and watch some of your promos, and they're really good, but they're not what they would be when you become this sinister kind of character that we're going to see down the road. So all of that, I say all that to say, how comfortable were you in front of these big crowds in a place like the Greensboro Coliseum at this time?
I was guarded, I was still seeking, and especially with Ole Anderson and Stan Hansen across the ring,
Yeah.
that's a tough day's work right there.
Now, I had the pleasure recently of driving Tommy Dreamer to an event for International Wrestling Cartel here in Pittsburgh. And on the way, Tommy and I had a conversation about when he was 19 years old and he had a match with Dick Slater. And so 19-year-old green kid, I think he said he had 30 matches under his belt by that point. And he's coming to Dick Slater like, hey, Mr. Slater, I was trained by, Johnny Rods and wanted to introduce myself and see what you want to do in the match. Apparently Dick Slater gave him just a nod, and that's all he got.
Yeah.
Tried it a couple more times over the course of the night and just got a nod every time. So he's like, I guess I'll just do it in the ring. I say all that to say, here you are, you're with Ole Anderson and Stan Hansen. You're still a fairly young man at the time too. Is it do you just accept before, without even talking to them, I'm not going to get anything out of these guys? Or do you attempt to go up to them and say hey, what do you guys want to do tonight?
No, I'm not gonna get shit. Nothing.
Again, you're still, I think you're in your mid-20s at this point. Intimidated getting into the ring under those circumstances?
A little bit, especially with Hansen.
Was he a little bit gruff? I know Ole certainly was.
Oh yeah, he was a lot of bit. Not a little bit.
So under those circumstances, even you, a guy with your knowledge up to this point, it's just keep your mouth shut, listen to these guys and do what they say, right?
Right.
Oh, man. Well, we're talking about Ole and Stan, who are both really well established, and Stan was splitting time between the States and Japan during this time. I have to imagine this would be the first time you were around him, or did you cross his path in Japan before?
I crossed my path with him in Louisiana.
Oh, so even earlier.
Yeah.
What do you recall about it?
Being scared to death.
So you had worked a match with him before?
Oh yeah. It was a bad experience.
So what happened during this match?
Well, there were about 20 Japanese photographers there because Stan, was touring Japan all the time. And they sent these photographers over there to get footage of him in the States. And it just so happened that he's wrestling me. Well, my finish at the time was a knee lift.
Yep.
And I gave him a knee lift close to the ropes. Referee went down 1, 2, and Stan put his foot up, but he missed the rope.
Ooh.
2, 3. So now all these photographers are taking pictures of me beating Hansen.
Holy shit.
Hansen sprung to his feet, grabbed the referee by his hair, and shit canned him over the top rope.
Like a shoot shit can.
Yeah, the guy didn't get close to grabbing the rope. He wound up third row. Then he turns around and sees me, and he just comes over and clubs me, shoots me into the ropes, and gives me that friggin' clothesline from hell.
Ooh, in the mouth?
Oh, it just ripped my fucking neck off, man.
Oh, God.
I went down and rolled outside the ring, and a fan comes over and gives me his chair. He goes, here, Jake, go back in there with this chair. And I looked at the chair, and I looked at Stan, and I said, fuck you, man. And I threw the chair down and left. Oh, God.
So Stan is just rip snorting mad out there in the ring. I mean, When you get to the back again, it's, I mean, even earlier in your career than at this point. So what's it like when he comes back? Are you avoiding him? Does he come find you?
You hear him screaming in the other locker room.
Holy shit. I mean, intimidating. And man, that clothesline of his, I mean, it's famous across the world because Hansen was legally blind and was still working in the ring.
Yeah, he'd shoot you in, and then you'd see him looking for you.
Holy shit.
And you're like 5 feet away.
Oh,
He's got cocked back. And as soon as he sees you, man, he just launches that thing.
just like uncorks it and doesn't matter where it fucking hits you. He just wants to make sure he hits you.
Damn straight.
So I'm sure that you took your fair share of lumps from him over the years, because I know that, you know, this isn't your first time wrestling and probably isn't your last, if I had to guess. Do you remember what, like, did he ever catch you with one in the mouth, knock out a tooth, anything like that?
No, never no teeth.
Man, thank goodness for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Aside from that, obviously getting the shit beat out of you, what's it like working with a guy who's visually impaired? Like, does it change the way that you approach the match?
Not really.
No?
Really, no. You just kind of go out there and feel your way through it. I mean, I wrestled George Weingroff, who was legally blind, you know, and I wrestled him probably 20 times.
Wow.
And it was quite interesting. You know, he would give you stuff by touching your arm. You know, with one tackle, it was 2 dots on your arm. One tackle drop down with 1 dot and a slide on the wrist. You know, it was just, he communicated by touch.
That is beyond incredible. Like, the idea of somebody like, and you having the wherewithal to, like, if, you know, you're in the middle of the ring, the adrenaline's pumping, and you've got to pay attention to this guy who's like tapping you and sliding his hand on you.
Right.
That's amazing. And it's strange to hear that, because, you know, we always hear that wrestling is such like a pirate ship, especially back in those days. But here's a promoter giving this guy who's legally blind this opportunity. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, he was a good cat, man.
Well, you know, Stan was one of the most famous gaijins at the time, very well compensated for his time working in Japan. And during this time, Jake, you're still a young man yourself, as we've said. You're making good progress, but you've got a wife and kids, and you aren't getting paid the way that you wanted to be from this territory at the time.
No,
so I know that you didn't like Japan, but when you see a guy like Stan just wielding all this power, both in the U.S. and in Japan, was there ever a thought of trying to get yourself a more permanent spot over there?
No, I thought about it briefly, but that wasn't my bag of nuts, man.
Just being so far away from your family, or what was it?
That was the main thing, just being gone for a month or 6 weeks at a time. What happened to me was the first trip I made over there was 12 weeks.
Holy shit.
And that kind of ruined it for me. You know, I wasn't with the big company. I didn't get all the perks that the guys got. I was with the low ball team, you know. And we went to the smaller towns. And, of course, accommodations weren't quite what you expected. You know, you got a rice mat on the floor, you know.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was catch as catch can. But I learned a lot. I made a little money, and but it wasn't my thing to go to Japan. Although I went 4 or 5 trips and did well over there.
Good money.
Yeah, it was. Certainly was.
Yeah, it's man, you and I have talked a little bit about your first run in Japan. We're going to talk about it more kind of in long form as the podcast goes on. When you had the face paint, but then you were also paired up with a couple unique guys over there, including the hippie, that guy that you've talked to us about here before. Really great performer, and we'll take a deeper dive on him. But I, like, you know, you said that you were over there for 12 weeks. I mean, listeners, it's pretty simple math. That's 1/3 of an entire year that you had to be over there in Japan away from your family. I mean, that's enough to leave anybody feeling like, hey, I don't give a fuck what the money's like. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, it was tough, man. It was tough.
Well, after the loss in Greensboro, which of course it's a loss against two vets like Ole and Stan, you take on Big John Studd in a one-on-one match, winning by disqualification. We've discussed Studd here a few times before. Big John Dud, as you would affectionately refer to him at times. And again, you haven't really given him glowing reviews. Here he is. He's younger. Would you say that when he's younger, he's more nimble in the ring?
A little, not much. Not much.
It probably made him more dangerous to work with, though, right?
Yeah. He would attempt to do things that he wasn't ready to do. That's the nice way of saying it.
And a guy like that, it's like, if he forgets to call a spot, he's probably just snatching you up and just doing what he wants with you.
He's chunking you.
Man, it's got to be intimidating a little bit, even you as a guy who's savvy, knows your way around the ring, can blow a big guy like that up. It's like out of nowhere, this motherfucker can just snatch you and do something with you.
Yeah, it was tough, man.
When you're in there with a guy who's a newcomer and it happens to be a massive guy, obviously you're going to be calling the action in the ring. What kind of stuff are you trying to call to protect yourself?
I'm giving him a hold to hold on to. That way he's got the upper hand and he feels comfortable and he's happy. He's happy if his thumb's up for him. It's when his thumb's down that you have a problem.
Thumbs up meaning he's going over?
No, just that he's going to have the upper hand.
Okay.
In other words, he's shiny.
Yes.
Him look good. So as long as you're making him look good, he's pretty comfortable to do things with. It's when it's your turn to look good that you have a problem.
Now, recently at a wrestling training I was at, we were talking about the big man, little man dynamic, and you're a big guy, so it's not very often that you play the little man in the ring, but with John Studd, you do. So, Jake, what is the formula for you as a baby face in this territory working against a big heel? How do you do it as the smaller guy?
You wrestle from underneath, You get put into holes, but you somehow escape them, and you counter. You counter with a move. Maybe you only get one move or two moves before he gets you back, But you're always fighting from underneath.
Do you feel like you've always got to be kind of moving forward, though, on the attack, like the kind of an aggressor as a smaller guy, or just trying to avoid and pick your spot?
No, you got to be aggressive.
Okay. For all John's faults, he was big. He had a great look for the business, so he's kind of tailor-made for wrestling. When management sticks you with a guy like that, do you feel like it's an endorsement for you as someone who can make the match work with this big green galoot of a guy?
Yeah, it's a test, and it's kind of a good thing because you realize that they trust you enough to go out and do the right thing and make this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of going out and just fumbling through it.
Yeah, and listeners, make no mistake, this was not a match about making Jake shine. Like a big 6'10" or whatever guy with that look and that size. Clearly the Crockett's are like, okay, we need to put somebody in there who we know can make this guy look good. And
Right.
Jake was the guy.
Absolutely.
Well, the next day, you and Barry Windham team together, but this time it's against Ole and Roddy Piper, with the latter two gaining the win. As you said in the last episode, this is a match like so many others that had no build, no story, no follow-up. So as someone who's still learning my way around the business end of the business, I'm curious, does being paired with two established guys like Ole and Piper, does it do anything for young guys like you and Barry despite the loss, or not so much?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It can make you or break you. They make you look good on the way to their victory. You still shine, And basically, the story that you want to put out there is those guys got lucky to get out of there with a win.
Ah.
You know, so you want to shine more. And if I remember correctly, they did let us shine quite a bit, Barry and I both. But they still took the win.
And that's what it's really about. Like, if you're going to be a heel, the job of the heel is to, even if the baby face is not winning, you have to make that baby face look as good as you possibly can. So you beat somebody, right?
Absolutely. That's the thought process.
You know, Jake, you told me before that you really felt like you got dialed in during your time in Georgia a couple years later in 1984. And that makes me wonder, you know, looking back now objectively with your experience and knowledge of wrestling, do you think that if you had been given the opportunity for the Crockett's, a larger role as a singles wrestler, would you have been able to capitalize on it at this stage of your career?
I think so. I think I was ready.
You know, it's one of those things too, where it's like sometimes people rise to the occasion when they're presented with that opportunity, where it's like maybe you're not showing the stuff yet, but as soon as you get that endorsement, it gives you the boost, and next thing you know, you're like, you know what, I can do this.
Absolutely, man. You know, you can carry the load.
A couple more questions and we'll wrap this one up.
Yeah.
You know, I'm also curious. It might sound like a strange question, but I think it's worth exploring. What were your personal goals in wrestling at this time? Was it making money beyond a doubt, of course, but did you want to get to the WWF, become NWA champion? What exactly did you have in mind?
I just, you know, in my mind, I was wanting to survive and I was wanting to make money. You know, as a long-term goal would have been to be the NWA champion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't think anything about going to going north. I didn't think about going to the WWF. That wasn't ever in the picture.
So you were satisfied to remain, you know, in South and bouncing around the territories, and just as long as you make a good living, you know, you were happy.
Yeah.
You know, here's another thing that we don't really discuss whenever it comes to you guys who are bouncing around the territories is that I don't imagine you had health insurance at this time, and you weren't exactly making a fortune with the Crockett's either. So, Jake, when you'd suffer an injury, would you just try to work around it, or how did most guys navigate that situation?
Tried to work through it, man. You didn't take no time off.
Couldn't, because you'd lose money, right?
Right, man.
And not to mention, if you go to a hospital, like if God forbid, Jake, you break your arm, like you go to the hospital knowing you did.
Yeah, I broke my arm in Louisiana.
That's right. And you had gone to work on like a dairy farm for a while, right?
Yeah, I had to.
How did you get around the whole not having insurance? Because that's a really expensive injury.
I paid it off little by little.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it sucked, man.
You know, I know me as a kid, whenever you'd see anybody on TV, the assumption is always like, oh, well, everybody on TV is rich. Like they're all making a fortune. But no, like for all intents and purposes, you had basically like a regular guy job at the time.
Basically, you know, 7 days a week.
And I think that you said at one point you were making somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe like $700 a week, something like that, which for 1982, decent money. Decent money if you're just working a normal job. But this is not a normal job. You're out there getting the shit beat out of you every night.
Getting the shit beat out of you and then wearing your car out.
Yes. So like no safety net, folks. If there's a bad injury, like you're fucked.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were telling me yesterday when we were on the phone that you've been riding around in style. What can you tell us about your new vehicle?
1965 Cadillac Sedan DeVille convertible. It's sky blue with a black top.
Ooh. Now it's a convertible. You're out there with the top down and presumably in this kind of weather, just soaking it in.
Yep.
Dude, can't wait to see a photo of this vehicle. I know you're going to send it to me. We'll have to put it up on social media or something.
We will. I want to get it cleaned up.
There you go. There you go. Well, I'm excited about it. Jake, today, I'm also excited about what we're talking about. I'm sure you're going to be excited to wrap this topic up. We're talking about Mid-Atlantic and 1982. It's the end of your run. We're finally at the end of your Mid-Atlantic run. It's not all doom and gloom, though. We do have some really good stuff to discuss here, so we'll get into the meat of it. Before, though, I did want to mention, I was telling you, and I keep updating people on my wrestling training, and I was telling you that I learned a valuable lesson here recently at training, and that's do not accept a leg drop from somebody who's as green as you are. Jake, you guessed it beforehand, but why don't you tell the folks what happens when you trust the wrong person on a leg drop?
Well, you get ass full in your face.
That's
your
it.
Face gets ass. That's on your face.
My face met a grown man's ass with the entire weight of his body behind it. It was very unpleasant.
Was there any penetration?
I turned my head, or else my nose would have gone right up his asshole, Jake.
You'd have killed him. With that nose, you'd have killed him.
Man, it was a bummer, and the reason I did want to bring it up, by the way, love the guy. I'm not putting any shit on him. It's it's wrestling, things happen. But one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up is aside from Lanny Poffo driving his knees into your fucking kidneys, is there any other notable instance where somebody just accidentally fucked you up in the ring?
Oh yeah, I mean I've got elbow from Randy Savage and on the eyebrow that split me for 17 stitches.
Damn.
Elbow in the chin from the convict. It split me. Yeah. There's things that happen.
That's just wrestling, right? You got to get used to the bumps and bruises.
Yeah.
Now, taking an elbow from Randy Savage that results in 17 stitches, though, I cannot imagine that you had a friendly reaction to him afterwards.
No, it wasn't too bad.
No?
He was crawling up the ropes. We're in a cage match.
Okay.
And he was crawling up the cage, and I reached up and grabbed him by the back of the tights, and he swung down with his elbow.
See, I was picturing I thought he hit you with his finish and got you in the face instead of the chest.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, that's way less bad. The reason I had that in my head is I don't know if you've ever seen the clip. DDP shares it every once in a while where Savage came off the top rope on him. Dallas turned his face, and Savage's elbow just dropped right on the side of Dallas's face. His face got all swollen up. It was nasty looking.
That's because he's got a big head.
It wasn't Savage's fault. His head got in the way. There
you go.
Well, always interesting to hear your take on this stuff, and I'm excited to hear your take on Mid-Atlantic. Again, we're wrapping up the story here as far as your 1982 run. Who knows? Maybe we'll talk about your run with Dory sometime down the road. But sorry, I won't put you through that. But what really sticks out to me about this is it's kind of a who's who as far as like who you're working with during this time. Pretty incredible names, so I'm excited to jump into it. Jake, at this point, you had worked with Sergeant Slaughter, and now you're really kind of getting into a memorable feud with him here. Slaughter is coming off of a really memorable feud with Pat Patterson in New York, so he's one of the bigger stars in the Carolinas at this time. And with him, he's got Private Jim Nelson and Private Don Kernoodle.
Yeah.
So before we talk about those two, Sarge, I mean, well-established guy. What did you think of his ring work and climbing into the ring with a guy of his stature at this time?
Oh, Sarge is great, man. Yeah, he's one of the top guys, man, for sure.
Like, you can tell right away, like, okay, very experienced man. He's been on major TV, right?
Yeah, he's awesome.
I know that you had left the territory before and made it really clear to the Crockett's that you wanted your shot working as more of a singles wrestler. Do you think that pairing you with Slaughter was kind of their way of trying to appease you, even though it was short-lived?
Yeah, probably. I got a taste of it anyway.
Yeah, it's like it feels like one of those things where you complained, they heard you, they're like, well, we'll put him with Slaughter, and then they just go back into their old bullshit.
Back to the same old shit.
Well, we talked about Jim Nelson before and how he would go on to become better known as Boris Zukov, but we have not really discussed Don Kernoodle. I recently talked to Ted DiBiase about him, and Ted said that he's one of the funniest guys he's ever met in wrestling. What did you think of Don?
Yeah, he was hilarious, man.
What is it about him? Like, everybody seems to share that sentiment.
I don't know, man. Not funny the way he wound up.
What happened to Don Kernoodle? I don't really know his story.
Committed suicide.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Damn, I had no idea. That's awful.
Yeah, it's horrible, man.
Jake, this is also the period in Mid-Atlantic when you team up with none other than the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant. And he's going to become a mainstay in the Mid-Atlantic territory over the years. And audiences seem to really love him and connect with him. And he'd come out to the song The Boy from New York City.
Yeah.
Music was not really being commonly used in wrestling at this point. What did you think of using a song as a way to get the crowd hyped up?
I thought it was great. I thought it was a great idea.
Had you, up to this point in your career, had you ever come out to entrance music before?
No.
So kind of a whole like new, unique thing in wrestling.
Yeah, it was at the time.
How important do you think that music is nowadays to the presentation of professional wrestlers like it?
It's huge. It gets the people going. You have to do a damn thing to get the people going. It's a good thing.
Like the minute they hear that music, they're already kind of preconditioned to be excited and ready to go.
That's it.
So as far as Boogie Woogie is concerned, first time you met him, Jimmy Valiant, what are your initial thoughts on him as a man and as a character?
As a man, he was great. As a character, he was unbelievable. He was out there, brother.
He was kind of unlike anybody else, and like one of those guys who was super over with the crowd, but like he looks like he has maybe walked past a gym a few times and never actually gone inside one.
You know, back in the day, he was quite a bodybuilder.
Was he really?
Yeah, he used to have quite a body.
Wow. I did not have the slightest idea. So, why do you think he let it go by the wayside? Do you think he just enjoyed extracurriculars too much?
No, he didn't do any extracurriculars.
Really?
No. He didn't do any drugs, nothing, man.
Boy, if there was one human being that I would look at in the locker room and say, I bet that guy does drugs, it would have been him.
Yep.
That's amazing. So he wasn't a drinker. He didn't smoke weed.
Nope.
God bless him. He's he really got himself over as a hippie type without having to actually do the stuff.
There you go.
Do you feel that his charisma is the entire reason that he was so heavily featured, or were his ring skills a big part of it too?
His ring skills, his timing was great, but he was over.
Something to be said for just being one of those guys that the crowd can just connect with, and that was him.
Yeah, sure was, man.
When's the last time you talked to Boogie Woogie?
It's been a while, man. Probably 15 years.
No shit, that long.
Yeah.
I crossed paths with him about 2 years ago, and he's a character.
Oh, yeah. He'll dial you up, have some fun with you.
That's him. So I know that you don't like working tag matches, but Boogie, again, he's super over with the crowd. Would you say that he's the exception to the rule? Like, did you enjoy teaming up with him?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. My job was to go out and sell for him.
And then he gets the big comeback.
That's right.
It worked. I actually went back and watched a couple matches with the two of you, and I don't know, it's sort of an oddball pairing, but kind of worked out.
Yeah, it worked all right.
Another interesting name is Pork Chop Cash. While feuding with Slaughter and his faction, you'll work with Pork Chop, and he had some high-profile matches during his career. And of course, being black kind of made him a lot more visible to the audience in his early days. Even working with Ernie Ladd on many occasions. Jake, You have any memories of Pork Chop?
Oh yeah, I used to hang with him back in Louisiana days, Mid-South days.
Really?
Oh yeah, he was there for quite a while.
And what can you tell us about these experiences hanging around Pork Chop?
A good man.
Yeah.
Good man. Always took care of his body.
Good condition, like to your point, good body, had a great look, a lot of charisma. It's why do you think a guy like Pork Chop never quite made it with somebody like Vince? Just opportunity didn't arrive?
That's it. He was too old by then.
Okay, so it's the age is probably what really kind of got him.
Yep.
Guy like that comes along 10 years later, could have been a huge star.
Oh yeah, he could have been.
Well, during the summer of '82, you're going to tag frequently with Paul Jones, and one set of matches that really stands out is Jones and yourself taking on your roommate, Gene Anderson, who's been semi-retired, and the Ninja. I know that you weren't necessarily a big fan of Ole's, but Gene, obviously he's your roommate, so you guys must like each other to a degree. Would you say that he was your buddy?
Hell no. Hell no. He punished my man. He used
No,
to,
yeah.
yeah.
How do you mean?
Oh, he stretched me a little bit.
Your roommate is getting into the ring with you and stretching you.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Things to me.
What were you like, leaving too many dishes in the sink or something? Why'd this guy have heat with you?
Too many joints left laying around, I think.
That is hilarious. I mean, is it one of those things where he's a veteran, so you can't really talk to him, or is it one of those things like because you live with him, are you able to be like, hey, dude, why the fuck are you coming after me out there?
He just laugh at you. Laugh at you and do it even more.
So the more you complain, the more you're gonna get it.
Absolutely.
So even during the time though, like, is he's a ring veteran, obviously, and he's got a lot of experience on you. Are you able to come to him for advice when you guys are living together, or is it like two ships passing in the night? You just live in the same place, don't really hang out.
Yeah, that's the way it was, man. We didn't hang out together at all. He was pretty down.
That sounds pretty fucking miserable, man.
Yeah, he was pretty down, man.
Well, because of the situation with his wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
Miserable situation for you too, because here you are, you're away from family. You come in with this ring veteran, and on the surface, it'd probably be like, "Hey, cool, I can really learn from this guy." And and in the meantime, he's droopy dog, and he's stretching you when you are in the ring with him.
Right.
That sounds really shitty.
Yeah.
In tag team and singles action, you're gonna work against the Ninja. And the Ninja would come to be known for his brawling and deathmatch wrestling later in his career. Any recollection about working with the Ninja, Jake?
Not so much. We only had a couple matches.
Yeah, you guys didn't work together much. It's like, I don't know. He's one of those guys who I guess really got over overseas. But over here, it's like, I don't know, a pretty forgettable run, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. He did okay in Dallas for a while, but that was about it.
Toward the end of your run in '82, you're going to work with Matt Bourne, and controversy has followed Matt absolutely everywhere he's gone, rightfully so.
Yeah.
Do you remember when or where you first met Matt Bourne?
It was in the Carolinas.
Okay, so it would have been right around this time.
Yeah. Yeah. A real piece of work.
I'm trying to think of the timeline of all of it. Were you there when Jim Duggan beat the living shit out of Matt Bourne?
No.
Okay, you've heard the story, I assume, though.
Oh, yeah.
So you say that he's a piece of work. I've heard the same thing from DiBiase. Obviously, Jim Duggan has no love lost for the man. What was your experience around him that got you thinking, boy, this is not the kind of guy I want to be around?
When I found out he was beating up his girlfriend, I had enough of him.
Holy shit. Yeah, that's enough to turn you away from just about anybody.
Yeah.
So Matt is like, I don't know, obviously you're not spending a lot of time with him, but even Jim will put him over like, hey, he was a great worker, like did a good job in the ring. Would you agree with that sentiment that he could go in the ring?
He could go in the ring, all right.
Do you believe that he had the potential to be a bigger star if drugs, alcohol, issues outside of the ring, obviously with domestic abuse, didn't play such a factor for him?
I don't know, man. I don't know. He was pretty twisted.
He's one of those guys that I hear get compared to Buzz Sawyer all the time. They're kind of like one in the same.
2 peas in a pod.
And apparently they were actually good friends too, so it's kind of makes sense. Later on, he'd come to be known as Doink the Clown, of course. Jake, if you had been pitched a clown gimmick whenever you went to the WWF, how do you think you would have reacted?
I couldn't have done it. That wouldn't be me.
I always viewed you as a guy who could literally pull off anything. Like we were talking about the Red Rooster. I was like, Jake could do the Red Rooster. You don't think you could be a dirty clown?
Oh, I could do it, but I wouldn't like it.
I think one added element that could really put you over as a clown is if they would let you go to the ring smoking a cigarette.
Or a joint.
Or a joint. Boy, that could really lead to some funky shit out there.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, at the end of August, you would leave the territory and go to Florida Championship Wrestling, and we will discuss Florida in detail soon enough. I would love to get Barry Windham here on the show so we can talk about the angle where you broke his nose. Man, I'm going to do everything I can to get him on here. But can you walk us through the decision to leave JCP and the opportunity coming up in Florida?
It was just an opportunity to do it, man, and I wanted out of there because nothing was happening for me. You know, they'd give me little bits and pieces, but I wasn't making any money. So, time to go.
Do you recall if you would have spoken to somebody like Kevin Sullivan or the Grahams, or how does an opportunity in Florida spring up?
I called Dusty.
Ah, okay.
And asked for an opportunity, and they said they had a spot for me.
I bet you couldn't get out of there fast enough. I did speak to David Crockett a while back about your run in Mid-Atlantic, and David told me himself, like, we saw a lot in Jake. Things just didn't quite work out with him. Did they do anything to keep you around?
Nope.
So they just said, okay, you got to go. Bon voyage.
Yep.
That sucks, man. Especially because, you think of the potential that existed there with all the talent that they had in the territory. It sucks that things didn't go differently during your Mid-Atlantic run.
Yeah, it should have.
Well, we're having fun here on the show, the Snake Pit, and we'll be back to do more of it next week. But Jake, I appreciate you taking the time today. I know you're a busy man, and it was fun getting to tell the full story of Mid-Atlantic, something that, again, never really gets covered when people talk about your career.